The click of stilettos echoes across the marble floor. Victoria Sterling, 35, stands before the floor-to-ceiling windows on the 60th floor of Sterling Corporation. Manhattan's night skyline reflects in her empty eyes. Perfect posture, perfect suit, perfect emptiness. Her phone vibrates on the desk for the 10th time. Mom calling. Victoria turns off the device completely, pours her fourth glass of champagne, and stares at the empty chair beside her. Another birthday party where 500 people showed up, but not one person who actually cared. The Sterling Corporation ballroom stands empty now, except for scattered champagne bottles and discarded cocktail napkins bearing the company logo. Crystal chandeliers blaze overhead, illuminating the aftermath of corporate celebration. The cleaning staff won't arrive for another hour, no one to witness the CEO's moment of weakness. Victoria raises her glass to the skyline. Happy birthday to me. Her voice cracks on the last word. Connor Mitchell, 38, pushes his cleaning cart through the Sterling building's 52nd floor. Soft folk music plays through his worn earbuds as he collects trash from executive offices. His movements are efficient, a man who has perfected the art of invisibility. He stops briefly to straighten his Sterling maintenance uniform and glance at the photo in his wallet. Leo, 9 years old, gap-toothed smile and eyes just like his mother's. The kind of smile that makes the overnight shift worth it. Hey Mitchell, you're covering the executive floor tonight, his supervisor calls out. Jenkins called in sick. Connor nods. The executive floor means better trash, expensive coffee grounds instead of cheap ones, organic fruit peels instead of vending machine wrappers. The small distinctions of working the midnight to 8 shift in a building where the daytime occupants earn his yearly salary in a week. He wheels his cart into the service elevator, punches the button for the 60th floor. As the doors close, he catches his reflection in the polished metal, a face etched with quiet dignity and unspoken loss. 3 years a widower, 3 years of raising Leo alone, 3 years of night shifts and missed school performances. The elevator opens to pristine hallways lined with glass-walled offices. The cleanup will be minimal here. Executives rarely leave messes in their own spaces. Until he reaches the main conference room. Through the glass wall, Connor spots a figure slumped in a chair at the head of the massive table. A woman in a black dress, blonde hair cascading across her face, an empty champagne bottle at her feet. He hesitates. Encounters with executives never end well for maintenance staff. But something in her posture, the devastating loneliness of it, stops him from quietly backing away. Connor knocks gently on the glass door. Excuse me, ma'am, are you all right? The woman lifts her head. Smeared mascara frames bloodshot eyes. Despite the dishevelment, Connor recognizes her immediately from the company newsletters and lobby portraits. Victoria Sterling, CEO, owner, his boss's boss's boss, the woman whose name is on the building. She stares at him, struggling to focus. Who are you? Connor Mitchell, ma'am, night maintenance. Victoria attempts to straighten her posture to recover some dignity. The effort fails spectacularly as she knocks over an empty glass. I'm fine, just working late. Connor nods, knowing a lie when he hears one. He's told enough of them himself. I'm fine, just tired. No, Leo, I'm not sad tonight. Would you like me to call someone for you, your driver maybe? Victoria laughs, a hollow sound that echoes in the cavernous room. There's no one to call. She stands unsteadily, gripping the table for support. Why don't you take me home? The words hang between them, raw and broken. Not a proposition, but a plea. Connor recognizes it immediately, the same words he'd whispered to empty rooms after burying Sarah. Just the two of us? He asks, the question slipping out before he can stop it. Victoria's laugh turns bitter. Yeah, just me. Always just me. Connor hears something beneath her words, a pain that mirrors his own sleepless nights. He removes his work jacket and drapes it over her bare shoulders. The fabric swallows her small frame, making her look more vulnerable than any CEO should ever appear. I'm Connor, he says gently, night shift janitor. And you are? He asks the question even though he knows exactly who she is. Sometimes people need the dignity of reintroduction. She looks up with haunting blue eyes, seeing him for the first time. Victoria Sterling, she whispers, the name falling from her lips like a confession. I own this building, and I hate every inch of it. Her voice cracks on the last word, revealing fissures in what Connor assumes is usually an impenetrable facade. Victoria's black Mercedes crawls through the empty streets of Manhattan. Connor sits behind the wheel, acutely aware of the absurdity, a janitor driving the CEO's $100,000 car. In the rearview mirror, he watches Victoria stare out the window, her reflection ghost-like against the passing streetlights. 500 people at tonight's party, she says quietly. When they saw me drinking alone, not one person asked if I was okay. Connor glances at her reflection, seeing not the powerful CEO, but a woman drowning in her own success. I haven't been to a party since Sarah's funeral, he replies. People look at widowers like they don't know what to say. Victoria's eyes meet his in the mirror. Sarah? My wife. Cancer. 3 years ago. Victoria nods, a moment of understanding passing between them. I'm sorry. Upper East Side, right? Connor asks, changing the subject. Victoria gives him an address that leads to one of Manhattan's most exclusive buildings. When they arrive, the doorman rushes forward, confusion evident as Connor steps out of the driver's side of Victoria Sterling's car. Ms. Sterling, is everything all right? Fine, Thomas. Mr. Mitchell was kind enough to drive me home. Her voice has recovered some of its professional strength, though her appearance remains disheveled. Connor hands her the car keys. Will you be okay from here, ma'am? Victoria hesitates, then nods. She begins to remove his maintenance jacket. Keep it, Connor says. You can return it another time. As Victoria walks toward the building entrance, she turns back. Thank you, Connor Mitchell. He watches her disappear into the gleaming lobby, then begins the long walk to the subway. His shift isn't over, but something tells him the Sterling Corporation can survive one night without him emptying trash cans. 1 week later, Connor is cleaning the 39th floor when he spots Victoria at the hallway coffee machine at 2:00 a.m. She's jabbing at the buttons repeatedly, but the machine displays an error message in angry red letters. She wears an immaculate business suit despite the hour, her hair perfectly styled, no trace of the vulnerable woman from the week before. Let me help, Connor offers, appearing beside her with arm. Victoria startles, then recognition dawns. Mr. Mitchell. Just Connor is fine. He taps the machine in a specific spot, and coffee begins flowing into her cup. You have to hit it just right. These machines have personalities. Thank you. Victoria accepts the coffee. You're still working this late? Night shift runs from 11 to 7, Connor explained. What about you? Shouldn't CEOs be sleeping in silk pajamas by now? Victoria almost smiles at that. I can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see spreadsheets and profit margins. They stand drinking coffee in comfortable silence. The building's night sounds create an oddly intimate atmosphere, the hum of computers on standby, the distant whoosh of elevators, the gentle buzz of fluorescent lights. Did you get home safely last week? Connor asks. Thanks to you, yes. Victoria's cheeks flush. And I'm sorry you saw me like that. Everyone has moments they'd rather forget, Connor says simply. The important thing is that someone was there to help. Victoria studies him with new interest. Your jacket is in my office. I had it cleaned. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to. Victoria hesitates. Would you mind coming to my office? I'd like to return it properly. Connor follows her through the empty corridors to the corner office with its commanding view of the city. The space is minimalist and impersonal. No family photos, no personal touches beyond expensive art that was likely selected by a corporate decorator. Victoria retrieves his jacket from a designer bag and hands it over. As Connor takes it, he notices his employee file open on her computer screen. You were looking me up? Victoria doesn't flinch at being caught. I was curious. Most night janitors don't quote folk songs under their breath while cleaning. Connor raises an eyebrow. You recognize Nick Drake? Pink Moon, my college roommate, played it constantly. Victoria gestures to the file. You were a musician, before Sterling Corporation. A lifetime ago. Connor drapes his jacket over his arm. Just coffee shop gigs, nothing fancy. Your file says you had a regular spot at the Blue Note. That's hardly nothing. Victoria sits at her desk, motioning for him to take a chair across from her. Why maintenance work? Connor weighs how much to share with this woman who is technically his employer. When Sarah got sick, we needed health insurance. After she died, I needed stable hours for Leo. Your son. Victoria nods toward the file. He's 9. Yes. What does he think of his dad working nights? Connor shifts in his chair. He thinks I'm a superhero who keeps the building safe while everyone sleeps. I haven't corrected him yet. Victoria's expression softens. That's a beautiful way to look at it. She closes his file. I envy him. Why would you envy a 9-year-old with a single dad? Because he sees magic in the ordinary. Victoria stands, walks to the window. Do you know what I wanted to be when I was little? Connor waits, sensing she needs to speak more than he needs to answer. A piano teacher, she says quietly. I wanted to teach kids how to make music. What happened? My father happened. Sterlings don't teach, Victoria. Sterlings lead. Her impression of her father carries decades of resentment. Every time I sat at the piano, he'd remind me I was wasting time that could be spent learning the business. Connor recognizes the wound beneath her words. And now you run the business. I run the business, Victoria confirms without pride. 60 floors of the Sterling legacy. The irony is I don't even know if I'm any good at the piano. I never got the chance to find out. A silence falls between them, not uncomfortable but weighted with mutual recognition. Two people whose lives veered from their original courses. I should get back to work, Connor finally says. Victoria turns from the window. Of course, thank you for the coffee assistance. As Connor reaches the door, Victoria calls after him. Mr. Mitchell, Connor, I was reviewing the maintenance schedule. You're assigned to this floor on Tuesdays and Thursdays? Yes, ma'am. Perhaps we'll have coffee again sometime. It's not quite a question, not quite a statement. Connor nods. The machine usually acts up around 2. As he closes the door behind him, Connor wonders what Sarah would think of this strange encounter. The night janitor and the CEO finding common ground in the empty hours of night. 2 weeks later, Connor stands outside the elevator on the 34th floor, listening to Victoria's panicked voice through the metal doors. Help me! Someone, please help! Miss Sterling, it's Connor. I'm calling maintenance right now. He keeps his voice steady, pressing the emergency call button repeatedly. They'll have you out soon. I can't breathe in here. Connor recognizes the rising panic in her voice. He sits down outside the elevator doors. Talk to me about something. Anything. What did you want to be when you were little? You know already? Victoria gasps. A piano teacher. Tell me why. What made you want to teach music? For several minutes, Connor keeps Victoria talking. About childhood piano recitals she'd watched longingly. About the music teacher who'd sneaked her lessons until her father found out. About the way piano keys felt under her fingers the few times she'd had the chance to play. When the elevator doors finally opened 30 minutes later, Victoria steps out on shaky legs and immediately grabs Connor's arm for support. Her usual composure has cracked completely, revealing someone much more human than the polished executive who commands boardrooms. Thank you, she breathes, still gripping his arm. You stayed. Connor studies her face, seeing traces of the scared little girl she must have been. Of course I stayed. That's what people do for each other. But even as he says it, Connor realizes that maybe not everyone in Victoria's world operates by the same rules. 3 weeks into their unusual friendship, Connor makes a decision that surprises even him. Sunday afternoon finds him in Central Park with Leo, teaching his son guitar on their favorite bench near the pond. Leo's enthusiasm more than makes up for his lack of skill, and his laughter draws smiles from passing joggers and dog walkers. Keep your fingers curved, buddy, like you're holding a tennis ball. Leo struggles to form an A minor chord. It's hard, Dad. Everything worth doing is hard at first. Remember how long it took you to learn to tie your shoes? Like 100 years, Leo sighs dramatically. And now you can do it without thinking. Connor adjusts his son's fingers on the frets. Music is like that too. When a familiar figure appears on the path, Connor's heart does something complicated in his chest. Dad, is that the lady from your work? Leo asks with the unfiltered curiosity that only 9-year-olds possess. Victoria approaches hesitantly, clearly unsure of her welcome in this family moment. She wears jeans and a simple sweater instead of her usual business attire, looking almost like a different person entirely. Connor, I hope I'm not intruding. I was just walking and she trails off, her eyes moving between father and son with something that looks like longing. Leo, this is Victoria. Victoria, my son Leo. Victoria smiles, a genuine expression that transforms her face. Hello, Leo. That's a beautiful guitar you're playing. It's Dad's, Leo announces proudly. He used to be a musician. He writes the most beautiful songs. Victoria's eyes widen with interest. You were a professional musician? She asks, settling onto the bench beside them, as naturally as if she belonged there. Connor feels heat creep up his neck. Just coffee shop gigs, nothing fancy. Play something for Victoria, Dad, Leo insists, thrusting the guitar toward Connor with the confidence that only comes from unconditional love. Connor hesitates, his fingers trembling slightly as they find the familiar frets. It's been months since he's played for anyone besides Leo, and certainly never for someone whose opinion might actually matter to him. The melody that emerges is soft and melancholic, a song he'd written about Sarah during her final weeks, about loving someone so much that you'd trade places with them without hesitation. Victoria listens with tears gathering in her eyes, understanding without words that she's hearing something sacred. When the last note fades, Leo claps enthusiastically while Victoria sits in respectful silence. That was extraordinary, she finally whispers. You wrote that? Connor nods, suddenly self-conscious about the worn guitar and the simple tune. For my wife, about what it feels like to love someone more than your own life. Victoria's breath catches, emotion flickering across her features. No one has ever loved me like that. The confession hangs between them, loaded with years of loneliness and corporate isolation. As Leo runs off to chase pigeons, Connor and Victoria find themselves alone on the bench, the afternoon sun casting long shadows across the park. Do you have any dreams left? Victoria asks suddenly. Connor considers the question seriously, watching his son's carefree laughter. Besides keeping Leo happy and healthy, I used to dream about recording an album. Silly, really. Victoria shakes her head firmly. It's not silly. I used to dream about learning piano, but my father said it was a waste of time for someone in my position. They sit in comfortable silence, two people who've given up pieces of themselves for survival and responsibility. Could you teach me something, just a chord or two? Victoria's request comes out hesitant, as if she expects rejection. Connor looks at her manicured hands, so different from his work-roughened fingers, and nods. Here, place your fingers like this. As he guides her hand to the correct position, their skin touches briefly, sending an unexpected jolt through both of them. Victoria's first attempt at the chord is clumsy, producing a muffled sound that makes Leo giggle from across the grass. Sorry, she winces. Don't apologize. Everyone sounds terrible at first. Connor adjusts her fingers slightly. Try again. Victoria's second try is better, and by the third, she's smiling with genuine delight at the clear sound she produces. I did it. You did. Connor finds himself smiling back, caught off guard by the simple joy in her expression, so different from the controlled CEO he first met. As the afternoon light begins to fade, Victoria reluctantly stands to leave. I should go. Board meeting tomorrow morning. Connor nods, understanding that her obligations haven't disappeared. Victoria, Yum, he calls as she turns to leave. Same time next week, if you want to keep working on chords. The invitation is casual, but carries weight they both recognize. Victoria's smile is soft and genuine. I'd like that, if you're sure you don't mind teaching a very slow student. Connor looks at Leo, still chasing pigeons with endless optimism, then back at Victoria. Everyone deserves a chance to make music, he says, especially people who've never been allowed to try. As Victoria walks away through the golden afternoon light, Leo returns to the bench, settling against his father's side. Dad, do you like Victoria? The boy asks with characteristic directness. Connor considers the question seriously, watching the spot where Victoria disappeared around a bend in the path. I think I'm learning to, he answers honestly. Sometimes the best things take time to understand properly. The admission surprises him. 3 years of grief and loneliness have made Connor cautious about connections. But something about Victoria's hidden vulnerability and unmistakable strength calls to him in a way he hadn't expected. He plays a few more chords as the light fades, thinking about second chances and unexpected friendships. In the distance, the Sterling Corporation building rises into the Manhattan skyline like a monument to power and ambition. But for the first time, Connor sees it differently, not just as a place where he cleans floors, but as the place that somehow connected him to a woman who understands loss in her own way. The following Tuesday at 2 a.m., Connor finds Victoria waiting by the problematic coffee machine. She wears a tailored pantsuit but has removed her jacket and heels, making her appear smaller, more approachable. "I was hoping you'd come by," she says without preamble. "I've been practicing those chords." Connor smiles. "Show me." Victoria mimics the finger positions he taught her hands forming an imaginary fretboard in the air. "Not bad," Connor nods approvingly. "You've got a good memory." "I've been using a pencil on my desk when no one's looking." Victoria laughs softly. "My assistant caught me once and thought I was having a stress reaction." Connor leans against the wall. "Maybe you were. This building holds a lot of stress." Speaking of which, Victoria's expression turns serious. "I have a proposition for you." Connor raises an eyebrow, waiting. "I've been reading about the Sterling Foundation's education initiatives. We fund music programs in underprivileged schools across the city." Victoria's eyes light up with purpose. "One program at the Manhattan School of Music offers scholarships to gifted children. They're looking for new students." Connor straightens. "Victoria, Leo could audition. With his natural talent and your guidance." "Leo doesn't need charity," Connor interrupts, pride stiffening his posture. Victoria steps closer. "It's not charity, Connor. It's opportunity. The same opportunity I never got because my father thought music was beneath us." Passion colors her voice. "Don't make the same mistake with Leo." Connor studies her face, searching for ulterior motives but finding only genuine enthusiasm. "Why would you do this for us? You barely know us." Victoria hesitates, vulnerability flashing across her features. "Because when I heard you play that song in the park, I realized I've spent 35 years surrounding myself with people who build things, buy things, sell things, but no one who creates beauty." She meets his eyes directly. "I want to be around that, even just a little bit." The honesty of her answer disarms him. "And what do you get out of this arrangement?" Victoria smiles, a mix of hope and mischief in her expression. "Guitar lessons. Real ones, not just 5 minutes in the park." "You want me to teach you guitar?" "I want to learn something that has nothing to do with quarterly profits or shareholder value." Victoria extends her hand. "Do we have a deal? Leo gets an audition and you teach me to play something more complex than a basic chord?" Connor considers her outstretched hand, the manicured nails, the subtle designer watch at her wrist, the quiet strength in her slender fingers. Taking it means accepting help, something he struggled with since Sarah died. But it also means giving Leo an opportunity that Connor's night shift salary could never provide. He clasps her hand firmly. "Deal. But we keep this between us. No one at Sterling Corporation needs to know their CEO is learning folk songs from the night janitor." Victoria's smile widens. "I'm very good at keeping secrets, Connor Mitchell. It's practically a job requirement." As they shake hands in the deserted hallway, neither realizes they've just formed an alliance that will challenge the carefully structured worlds they've both built to protect themselves from further pain. In Victoria's penthouse apartment the following Sunday, Connor sits on an antique chair worth more than his monthly rent, tuning a brand new Martin guitar. "You didn't need to buy this," he says, running his fingers over the pristine instrument. "I could have brought mine." Victoria arranges 2 stools near the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. "Consider it my investment in our arrangement. Besides, this way you can leave it here for our lessons." The apartment reveals a Victoria that Connor hasn't seen before. Despite its obvious luxury, the original artwork, the designer furniture, the space feels sterile, unlived in. No personal photos, no mementos, nothing that reveals the woman behind the CEO title. "How long have you lived here?" Connor asks, testing the guitar's sound. 5 years. Victoria sits on one of the stools, adopting the perfect posture of someone who attended finishing school. "I'm rarely here except to sleep." "It's beautiful," Connor offers, though what he means is it's empty. Victoria seems to hear the unspoken observation. I know it doesn't look like anyone actually lives here. My interior designer calls it curated minimalism. I call it not having time to accumulate a life. Connor hands her the guitar. Well, now you're accumulating music. Show me what you remember from last week. Victoria places her fingers awkwardly on the fretboard, attempting the simple chord progression he taught her in the park. Her first attempt produces a discordant sound that makes her wince. Sorry, I'm not used to being bad at things. You're not bad, Connor corrects her. You're new. There's a difference. He adjusts her fingers slightly. Try again, but relax your wrist. For the next hour, Connor guides Victoria through basic chords and finger positions. She approaches the guitar with the same focused determination she likely brings to board meetings. Full concentration, quick adaptation, visible frustration when she doesn't immediately succeed. You need to be patient with yourself, Connor advises after her third exasperated sigh. No one masters an instrument in one day. I don't have the luxury of time, Victoria responds, rubbing her fingertips where the strings have left impressions. There are always demands, always deadlines. Then this is your chance to exist outside of time. Connor takes the guitar, plays a simple progression. Music isn't about rushing to the end. It's about being present in each note. Victoria watches his hands move effortlessly across the strings. Is that how you wrote songs? Being present in each note? Writing songs is different for everyone. For me, it was about translating feelings into sound. Connor continues playing softly. Some emotions are too big for words alone. Like your song about Sarah. Connor nods, the melody shifting to the piece he played in the park. This was how I processed grief when it was too overwhelming to speak about. Victoria listens, transfixed by the raw emotion in the simple melody. It's beautiful, heartbreaking, but beautiful. That's the paradox of grief, Connor says as the final notes fade. It only exists because love existed first. A silence falls between them, comfortable and contemplative. Victoria stares out at the park below, the afternoon sun painting Manhattan in golden light. I've never lost someone I loved that deeply, she finally says. My relationships always end before they reach that point. Work inevitably takes precedence. Connor returns the guitar to her. Maybe that's why you want to learn music now, to find another way to connect. Victoria positions her fingers on the fretboard with new determination. Maybe I just want something that's mine alone, not Victoria Sterling, CEO, just Victoria, guitar student. Well, Victoria, guitar student, Connor smiles. Let's try that A minor chord again. As the lesson continues, Connor notices subtle changes in Victoria's demeanor, the tension gradually leaving her shoulders, the corporate mask slipping to reveal genuine concentration, even moments of childlike pleasure when she successfully plays a sequence. By the time the lesson ends, the sun is setting over the park, bathing the apartment in soft orange light. Victoria sets the guitar aside, her fingertips red from pressing against the strings. Same time next week? She asks, walking Connor to the door. Actually, Leo's audition is next Sunday, Connor reminds her. I need to be there. Of course, Victoria nods quickly. Family comes first. The word family hangs between them, a concept that means everything to Connor and seems foreign to Victoria. You could come, Connor finds himself saying, to the audition. If you want to see the program you recommended. Victoria's expression brightens, then dims with caution. Would that be appropriate? I don't want to intrude on a family moment. You helped make it possible, Connor shrugs. Besides, Leo asked about you. He thinks you're fancy but nice. A genuine laugh escapes Victoria, a sound Connor realizes he's never heard before. Fancy but nice. I'll take that as a compliment from a 9-year-old critic. Manhattan School of Music, main auditorium, 2 p.m., Connor says. No pressure either way. Victoria nods, her expression careful but hopeful. I'll see if I can move some things around. As Connor rides the elevator down from the penthouse, he wonders if he's crossing boundaries that should remain intact. The night janitor and the CEO, not just passing in hallways now, but deliberately entering each other's lives. Sarah would have cautioned him about protecting his heart, but Sarah would also have recognized the music waking up in him again after 3 years of silence. The Manhattan School of Music bustles with activity, as parents and children arrive for the scholarship auditions. Connor straightens Leo's tie for the third time, trying to calm his own nerves. "You'll be amazing, buddy. Just remember what we practiced." Leo clutches his guitar case, eyes wide with excitement and anxiety. "What if I mess up?" "Then you keep going." Connor kneels to meet his son's eyes. "Music isn't about perfection. It's about feeling." "Like Mom always said," Leo nods solemnly. "Exactly like Mom always said." They check in at the registration desk and find seats in the waiting area. Connor scans the room automatically, though he doesn't really expect Victoria to appear. Sunday is likely filled with preparation for the work week or social obligations that CEOs maintain. Yet 20 minutes before Leo's scheduled audition, Victoria Sterling walks through the entrance. She wears casual clothes, jeans and a simple blouse, but still carries herself with unmistakable poise. Several parents glance up, recognition flickering across their faces. The CEO of Sterling Corporation isn't someone you expect to see at a children's music audition. Victoria spots Connor and Leo, hesitates, then approaches with a tentative smile. "Is this seat taken?" Leo beams at her. "You came." "I wouldn't miss it." Victoria sits beside them, handing Leo a small gift bag, a little good luck charm. Leo pulls out a guitar-shaped keychain with his name engraved on the back. "Cool. Thanks, Ms. Victoria." "Just Victoria is fine," she tells him with a warmth Connor hasn't seen in their late-night conversations. Connor catches her eye over Leo's head. "Thank you for coming. I know Sundays are probably busy for you." "I rescheduled a brunch with the mayor," Victoria admits quietly. This seemed more important. Before Connor can respond, a woman in an expensive designer outfit approaches their row, her gaze fixed on Victoria. "Victoria Sterling, Margaret Ashworth's husband, serves on your board. I'm Diane Ashworth." Victoria's expression shifts subtly, the warmth replaced by professional courtesy. "Mrs. Ashworth, nice to meet you." Diane glances between Victoria and Connor with poorly disguised curiosity. "I didn't realize you had a personal interest in the music program." "The Sterling Foundation is committed to supporting arts education," Victoria replies smoothly. "I try to witness the impact of our initiatives firsthand when possible." Diane's gaze lingers on Connor, clearly trying to place him. "And you are?" "Connor Mitchell." He extends his hand. "This is my son, Leo. He's auditioning today." "How lovely." Diane's smile doesn't reach her eyes. "And you and Ms. Sterling are?" "Friends," Victoria states before Connor can respond. "Mr. Mitchell's son shows exceptional promise. I'm here to support talented young musicians." The simple word, friends, hangs in the air between them. Connor realizes it's the first time Victoria has defined their relationship to anyone else. "How wonderful of you to take such a personal interest." Diane's tone implies questions she doesn't voice. "I must find Margaret. She'll be thrilled to know you're here." As Diane walks away, Victoria's posture remains rigid. "Margaret Ashworth is our HR director," she explains quietly to Connor. "And apparently the Manhattan music scene is smaller than I anticipated." "Does it matter if people know you're here?" Connor asks. Victoria watches Diane whispering to another woman across the room. "It doesn't matter to me, but the Sterling board has opinions about everything I do, especially who I spend time with." Before Connor can process the implications, Leo's name is called for his audition. "That's you, buddy," Connor squeezed his son's shoulder. "Remember, from your heart." Leo stands, suddenly looking very small with his guitar case. Victoria leans forward impulsively. "Leo," she says softly, "when I was your age, I wished more than anything that I could make music. You already have that gift. Just share it with them." Leo nods solemnly, then follows the administrator into the audition room. Connor and Victoria sit in silence for several minutes. Finally, Connor speaks. "Thank you for what you said to him, and for coming today." "I meant it." Victoria's voice is quiet but intense. "My father took music away from me. Watching Leo pursue it feels like, I don't know, a vicarious second chance." "Is that why you're helping us? To right old wrongs?" Victoria considers the question. "Maybe partly, but also because..." She's interrupted by Margaret Ashworth herself, a sleek, sharp-featured woman in her 50s, approaching with determined steps. "Victoria, What a surprise to find you here on a Sunday. Victoria rises, transforming instantly into the CEO, shoulders back, chin lifted, expression pleasantly neutral. Margaret, how nice to see you. Margaret's calculating gaze shifts to Connor, who stands as well. And who is your companion? This is Connor Mitchell. His son is auditioning today for the scholarship program. Margaret extends a manicured hand. Lovely to meet you, Mr. Mitchell. What do you do? The question is pointed, designed to establish hierarchy. Connor meets her gaze directly. I work nights at Sterling Corporation. Maintenance department. A flash of surprise crosses Margaret's face before she masters it. How interesting. Victoria, I wasn't aware you were personally involved with the Foundation's scholarship selections. I'm not making selections, Victoria clarifies, her tone cooling. I'm supporting a friend whose son has musical talent. The word friend again, spoken with deliberate emphasis. Margaret's smile tightens. Of course. Well, the board will be fascinated to hear about your community outreach. We're always concerned about how our executives represent the Sterling brand. The thread is veiled but unmistakable. Victoria doesn't flinch. The Sterling brand stands for excellence in opportunity, Margaret. Supporting talented children seems perfectly aligned with our values. Before Margaret can respond, the audition room door opens and Leo emerges, his face flushed with excitement. Dad, I played the whole song without any mistakes. Connor embraces his son, pride overwhelming any tension from the previous conversation. That's amazing, buddy. I knew you could do it. Leo turns to Victoria, beaming. I wasn't even scared, Victoria. I remembered what you said about sharing my gift. Victoria's corporate mask melts as she smiles at Leo. I can't wait to hear all about it. Margaret observes this exchange with narrowed eyes. Well, I should find Diane. Victoria, I'll see you at tomorrow's executive committee meeting. We have much to discuss. She nods curtly and walks away. As they leave the building, Leo chatters excitedly about the audition, walking ahead while Connor and Victoria follow. I'm sorry about Margaret, Victoria says quietly. She's protective of the corporate image. Connor glances sideways at her. Is this going to cause problems for you? Victoria watches Leo skipping ahead, guitar case bouncing against his back. Probably, but seeing his face just now, worth it. She hesitates. But perhaps we should be more discreet about our friendship. The word carries new weight now that it's been spoken aloud to others. Connor nods slowly. We can go back to 2 a.m. coffee in maintenance hallways if that's easier. No, Victoria says with surprising firmness. I'm not giving up our guitar lessons or Leo's journey. I just need to be strategic about the board's perception. As they reach the street corner, Leo turns back. Can Victoria come for ice cream with us, Dad? We always get ice cream after something good happens. Connor looks to Victoria, leaving the decision to her. She glances at her watch, then at Leo's hopeful face. Something shifts in her expression, a decision being made beyond ice cream. I'd love to, Leo, she says. And for the first time since Connor has known her, Victoria Sterling looks completely present in the moment, untroubled by what came before or what might come after. As they walk toward the ice cream shop, Connor realizes they've crossed an invisible line. Whatever began as a strange midnight encounter between CEO and janitor has become something neither of them anticipated, a genuine connection that defies the barriers of class and circumstance. What neither of them sees is Margaret Ashworth watching from the school entrance, phone in hand, taking a photo of the unlikely trio heading down the Manhattan street together. Morning light streams through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Victoria's corner office. She reviews quarterly reports with practiced efficiency, pausing only when her assistant announces Margaret Ashworth's arrival. Send her in, Victoria says, closing her laptop. Margaret enters with calculated precision, designer heels clicking against marble floors. Victoria, thank you for making time this morning. Your message sounded urgent. Margaret places her tablet on the desk, swiping to display photos from yesterday's audition. Victoria with Connor and Leo at the ice cream shop, laughing together. I'm concerned about your recent associations. Victoria maintains her neutral expression. Is there a company policy against ice cream I'm unaware of? This isn't about ice cream. When Margaret's voice hardens. It's about the night janitor you've been spending time with, Connor Mitchell. Mr. Mitchell's son was auditioning for our foundation's scholarship program. I was there to support a promising candidate. And the guitar lessons he's giving you in your penthouse? Is that also foundation business? Victoria's face betrays nothing, though her pulse quickens. You've been monitoring me. The board monitors potential vulnerabilities to the Sterling brand. My husband mentioned seeing you at the auditions. I did some investigating. Margaret taps her tablet. You've met with Mitchell multiple times in this building after hours. He visited your residence last Sunday. And yesterday, you were playing Happy Family at an ice cream parlor. Victoria leans forward. My personal time is my own, Margaret. Not when you're the face of Sterling Corporation. Margaret slides a document across the desk. The Ethics Committee has prepared a brief outlining the risks of fraternization between executives and maintenance staff. The power differential alone creates liability concerns. Victoria leaves the document untouched. Is the board dictating who I can befriend now? Friends? Margaret's laugh is sharp. Victoria, you're the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar corporation. He cleans floors for minimum wage. What could you possibly have in common? Victoria thinks of music filtering through her sterile apartment, of Connor's patience as she struggled with chord progressions, of Leo's face lighting up when he played his audition piece perfectly. More than you might imagine. Margaret's expression hardens. The board meeting is Friday. Several members have expressed concern about your judgment recently. First, the expanded educational funding that cut into shareholder dividends. Now this inappropriate relationship. There's nothing inappropriate about supporting a talented child's musical education. It's the appearance that matters. Margaret stands. The board values your leadership, Victoria, but they need reassurance that you're making decisions based on business interests, not emotional attachments. Victoria recognizes the threat beneath Margaret's words. What exactly are you suggesting? Distance yourself from the janitor and his son. Demonstrate your commitment to objective decision-making. Margaret walks to the door, then turns back. The maintenance department is undergoing restructuring. Budget constraints require personnel reductions. The implication hangs in the air like poison. You can't be serious, Victoria says quietly. 15 positions will be eliminated. As CEO, you'll need to approve the final list. Margaret's smile doesn't reach her eyes. I'm sure you'll make the right decision for Sterling Corporation. After Margaret leaves, Victoria stares at the document on her desk. The words blur before her eyes as she contemplates the choice being forced upon her. Connor's job or her authority to protect the foundation that supports thousands of children. She opens her desk drawer, fingers brushing against the guitar pick Connor gave her during their last lesson. Music isn't about rushing to the end, he'd said. It's about being present in each note. Victoria closes her eyes, wondering how she can possibly remain present in this moment when every option leads to pain. Connor sits in the school auditorium, watching Leo receive his certificate from the Manhattan School of Music. The scholarship letter had arrived 3 days ago, full tuition for the Gifted Young Musicians program. Mitchell, the program director announces, Leopold Mitchell. Leo walks across the stage with dignified steps that make Connor's chest ache with pride. Sarah would have loved this moment. Their son's talent being recognized, opportunities opening before him that neither Connor nor Sarah had at his age. As Leo returns to his seat clutching his certificate, Connor scans the audience. Despite knowing better, he finds himself searching for Victoria among the faces. They haven't spoken since the ice cream celebration 4 days ago. Her absence isn't surprising. CEOs don't attend children's music program orientations. But disappointment settles in his chest nonetheless. She's not coming, is she? Leo whispers, following his father's gaze. Connor squeezes his son's shoulder. Victoria's very busy, buddy. Running a company takes a lot of time. But she helped me get in. I wanted to thank her. We'll find a way to thank her, Connor promises. For now, this is your moment. Let's celebrate you. After the ceremony, they stop for pizza at Leo's favorite restaurant. Leo chatters excitedly about the program, the instruments he'll learn, the performances they'll give. Dad, will you start playing music again? Like real music, not just teaching me? The question catches Connor off guard. What do you mean? You've been humming while you make breakfast, and I heard you playing late at night after I went to bed. Leo takes another slice of pizza. You stopped playing after Mom died, but now you're playing again. Connor considers his son's observation. The music had returned gradually, melodies in his head during work shifts, fingers tapping rhythms on the cleaning cart, new song fragments emerging during Victoria's lessons. Would you like it if I played again? Maybe wrote some new songs? Leo nods enthusiastically. Mom would want you to. She always said your music was too important to stay inside. Connor ruffles his son's hair, amazed at the wisdom that sometimes emerges from his 9-year-old. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart, Dad. You just weren't listening. They laugh together, and for the first time in 3 years, Connor feels the possibility of a future that contains more than just survival, one that might include music, growth, and maybe even friendship with a woman who understands what it means to lose a fundamental part of yourself. 2 nights later, Connor pushes his cleaning cart through the executive floor at 2 a.m., pausing at the problematic coffee machine. For a moment, he allows himself to hope Victoria might appear, but the hallway remains empty. He continues his rounds, stopping outside her office. The light is on, visible through the glass wall, but the space is empty. A half-finished coffee cup sits on her desk beside stacks of documents marked confidential personnel restructuring. Connor continues down the hall, unaware that 20 floors above, Victoria sits in the boardroom alone, spreadsheets and personnel files spread across the massive table. Connor's employee file lies open before her, his photograph paper-clipped to performance reviews, rating him exceptional in reliability and work quality. Victoria stares at the document Margaret has prepared, a list of 15 maintenance positions flagged for workforce optimization. Connor's name appears highlighted at the top with a note. Recommendation, immediate termination due to performance concerns. A complete fabrication. His reviews show nothing but excellence. Victoria picks up her phone, hesitates, then dials. This is Thomas Reynolds, a tired voice answers. Thomas, it's Victoria Sterling. I apologize for calling so late. Ms. Sterling? The chairman of the board sounds surprised. Is everything all right? I'm reviewing the maintenance staff reduction proposals for tomorrow's meeting. I have concerns about the methodology. Margaret assured us the process was thorough and objective. That's what I'm questioning. Victoria chooses her words carefully. The highest-rated employees seem targeted, while lower performers are retained. It appears inconsistent with our merit-based policies. A pause, Burrow. Victoria, these are janitors. Does it really matter which ones we keep? The casual dismissal stings. Victoria thinks of Connor's dedication, his dignity, his quiet competence. Every position at Sterling Corporation matters, Thomas. That's the culture I've tried to build. Admirable, but ultimately this is a cost-cutting measure. The board is more concerned with the Education Foundation budget you've expanded. That's millions in potential dividends being directed to charity. Victoria's grip tightens on the phone. The foundation serves 12,000 children, Thomas. It's not just charity, it's investment in communities where we operate. The board feels you've become emotionally attached to these projects. We need assurance you're making decisions as CEO, not as a philanthropist. The ultimatum is clear, though unspoken. Victoria must prove her business objectivity, even at Connor's expense, or risk losing control of the foundation. I understand, she says finally. I'll see you at tomorrow's meeting. After hanging up, Victoria stares at Connor's file, the impossible choice before her. One man's job versus 12,000 children's futures. An easy calculation on paper. Devastating in human terms. She thinks of Leo's face when he received the scholarship, of Connor teaching her guitar with endless patience, of the music slowly returning to both their lives. With a deep breath, Victoria signs the termination authorization. Connor's locker contains a pink slip and deactivated security badge when he arrives for his shift the following evening. Budget cuts, his supervisor explains with practiced indifference. Nothing personal, Mitchell. Company's restructuring the cleaning staff. Connor stares at the termination letter, mind racing through mortgage payments and Leo's expenses, grocery bills, and insurance premiums he can no longer afford. Effective immediately, not even 2 weeks' notice. Management decision. Security will escort you out. As a guard leads him through the lobby, Connor catches a glimpse of Victoria exiting the elevator with board members in expensive suits. Their eyes meet briefly across the marble expanse. Victoria's face remains impassive, but her hand trembles slightly at her side. Connor turns away, understanding washing over him like ice water. Not budget cuts. Her. She authorized this. Outside, rain falls on Manhattan streets. Connor stands under the building's awning, termination papers clutched in his hand, betrayal burning in his chest. Through the glass doors, he watches Victoria shake hands with board members, her CEO mask firmly in place. No trace of the woman who sat in his Central Park spot, who laughed with his son over ice cream, who struggled with guitar chords in her penthouse. Connor walks away into the rain, not looking back at the sterling name illuminated against the night sky. Victoria sits alone in her office after the board meeting, staring at the city lights. The maintenance restructuring passed unanimously. The Education Foundation budget remained intact. By corporate metrics, today was a success. She feels hollow, victory tasting like ash. A knock interrupts her thoughts. Margaret enters without waiting for permission, satisfaction evident in her posture. The board was impressed with your presentation, particularly your handling of the staff reductions. Victoria doesn't turn from the window. Was there something specific you needed, Margaret? Just confirmation that the termination notices were delivered as scheduled. They were, including Mitchell's. Victoria faces her then, anger breaking through her professional veneer. Yes, Margaret, Connor Mitchell no longer works for Sterling Corporation. Are you satisfied? It's not about satisfaction, Victoria. It's about appropriate boundaries. Margaret places a folder on the desk. I've taken the liberty of compiling a list of suitable social connections for someone in your position. Fellow executives, cultural board members, appropriate charitable organizations. Victoria stares at the folder. You're prescribing my friendships now? Merely suggesting alternatives to maintenance staff. Margaret straightens her already impeccable jacket. The board has renewed confidence in your judgment. Let's ensure it stays that way. After Margaret leaves, Victoria reaches for her phone, scrolls to Connor's number. What could she possibly say? That she sacrificed his livelihood to protect funding for thousands of children? That she chose the greater good over their friendship? That despite her penthouse and corner office, she had less freedom than he did? She sets the phone down without calling. Some betrayals can't be explained away. 2 weeks pass. Connor submits job applications throughout Manhattan, each returning the same response. Positions filled, qualifications not quite right, maybe next time. At home, he maintains a brave face for Leo, explaining that he's between jobs and exploring opportunities. The truth that he can't even secure another janitorial position feels too humiliating to share. Their savings dwindle rapidly. Connor cancels his cell phone plan, cuts the cable subscription, shops at discount grocery stores. Each morning after Leo leaves for school, he visits another cleaning company, another maintenance department, another building service. Each afternoon brings another rejection. After the 20th rejection, Connor sits on their apartment steps, a pattern emerging too clear to ignore. Someone has blacklisted him. No company in Manhattan will touch Connor Mitchell, former Sterling Corporation employee. The realization brings clarity. Not just Victoria. The entire Sterling machine has deemed him a problem to be eliminated. That evening, Connor helps Leo with homework at their kitchen table, the scholarship acceptance letter displayed proudly on the refrigerator. The irony isn't lost on him. His son attending an elite program while they can barely afford rent. Dad? Leo looks up from his math worksheet. Are we poor now? The innocent question hits Connor like a physical blow. Why do you ask that, buddy? We're eating different food. You canceled movie night, and you look worried all the time. Connor sets down his pencil, considering how much truth a 9-year-old deserves. We're having some challenges right now. I'm between jobs, which means money is tight, but we're going to be fine. Is it because you and Victoria aren't friends anymore? The question startles Connor. What makes you think that? You stop talking about her, and you're sad again, like after mom died. Connor pulls his son into a hug, amazed at his perceptiveness. Adult friendships are complicated sometimes, but this isn't about Victoria. It's just a rough patch, and we'll get through it together. Leo nods against his shoulder. Can I still go to music school, even if we're poor? Absolutely, Connor assures him, though he has no idea how they'll manage the associated costs, instruments, transportation, proper clothes for performances. Your scholarship is secure. Music is your gift, and no one can take that away. After Leo goes to bed, Connor retrieves his guitar from the closet. He hasn't played since the termination notice, the betrayal having silenced the music that had begun to return. Tonight, though, he needs the comfort of strings beneath his fingers, the discipline of creation when everything else feels beyond control. He plays softly, a new melody emerging, not the melancholy of grief that characterized his songs about Sarah, but something sharper, edged with betrayal, yet threaded with resilience. In his small bedroom, Leo listens through the wall, finding comfort in the sound of his father's music returning, even in darkness. Victoria throws herself into work with renewed intensity. 14-hour days, weekend strategy sessions, midnight conference calls with international divisions. The board notices her dedication, praises her focus. No one mentions the dark circles beneath her eyes, the weight dropping from her already slim frame, the absence of even her professional smile. 3 weeks after Connor's termination, Victoria attends a charity gala at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. She circulates professionally among New York's elite, discussing Sterling Corporation's philanthropic initiatives with practiced eloquence. During a momentary respite from networking, she finds herself before an exhibit of ancient musical instruments. A simple wooden lyre from Greece, over 2,000 years old, catches her attention. Beautiful, isn't it? A silver-haired museum curator approaches. People have been making music since before they built cities or wrote laws. It's one of our most fundamental expressions. Victoria nods, thinking of Connor's words about music translating feelings too large for language. Do you play an instrument yourself? The curator asks. I was learning guitar, Victoria answers before she can stop herself. Recently. Was? Life got complicated. The curator smiles gently. Music has a way of waiting for us. Even if we set it aside, it remains patient, ready for when we return. Victoria stares at the ancient lyre, wondering if some things, once broken, can truly be recovered. Later that evening, she returns to her penthouse, removing diamonds and designer gown with mechanical efficiency. The Martin guitar stands untouched in the corner where Connor last placed it, gathering dust. Victoria approaches it hesitantly, runs her fingers over the strings without picking it up. The discordant sound mirrors the disharmony in her chest. Her phone rings, Margaret Ashworth's name flashing on the screen. Victoria ignores it, instead reaching for the guitar, positioning her fingers in the first chord Connor taught her. The sound emerges imperfectly but recognizably. She plays the simple progression slowly, each note a small act of rebellion against the sterile life she's returned to since cutting Connor from it. When she finishes, Victoria finds herself crying. Silent tears she hasn't permitted herself since childhood. Not for the loss of a guitar teacher, but for the glimpse of authentic connection she'd sacrificed for corporate approval. 1 month after his termination, Connor sits in the waiting room of his 5th job interview this week. The receptionist avoids eye contact when she returns from speaking with the hiring manager. I'm sorry, Mr. Mitchell, the position has been filled. Connor nods, the script familiar by now. Thank you for your time. Outside, May's sunshine mocks his darkening prospects. The mortgage payment is due in 3 days. His unemployment benefits cover less than half his monthly expenses. The small savings account that once represented Leo's college fund has been depleted, paying for essentials. Connor walks toward East 48th Street's music and art store, the decision weighing heavily with each step. The guitar Sarah gave him for their 2nd anniversary, a 1967 Martin acoustic with mother-of-pearl inlays, represents his last ascetum of real value. He stands outside the store for 20 minutes, gathering courage to surrender this piece of his past. The store's bell chimes as he enters, the familiar smell of wood polish and metal strings triggering a rush of bittersweet memories. Connor approaches the counter, removing the glider from its worn case. I'd like to sell this. The owner, a bearded man in his 60s, examines the instrument with appreciative hands. Beautiful piece. 1967 Martin D28, original tuning pegs. You don't see many of these in this condition. It was well loved. I can offer you 8,000. Connor inhales sharply, more than he expected, enough to cover 3 months of expenses if they're careful. That would be acceptable. As the owner begins paperwork, the store's bell chimes again. Connor doesn't turn until he hears a painfully familiar voice. Connor, what are you doing here? Victoria Sterling stands near the classical guitar section, dressed in casual clothes that probably cost more than his monthly rent. Her face shows genuine shock, followed immediately by something that looks like guilt. For a moment, neither moves, the weight of their shared history filling the space between them. Selling my guitar, Connor replies flatly. Turns out unemployment doesn't pay enough to cover rent and food. Victoria's eyes move to the Martin in his hands, understanding immediately what this sacrifice means. Connor, I can help. Let me... He cuts her off with a laugh that holds no humor. Help like you helped me keep my job? The words hit their target. Victoria steps back as if physically struck. That's not fair. You don't understand the position I was in. The shop owner, recognizing Victoria from newspaper photos, approaches with the kind of obsequious attention reserved for extremely wealthy customers. Miss Sterling, what an honor. Are you here for our charity instrument drive? Victoria's face flushes deep red, but she doesn't correct the assumption. Connor feels another piece of his heart break. Of course, Victoria murmurs, for underprivileged children. The casual lie delivered so smoothly confirms everything Connor suspected about their relationship. He'd been a charity case all along, a project to make Victoria feel better about her privileged existence. Perfect timing then, Connor says, his voice deadly quiet. You can buy my guitar for your charity drive. Help some other underprivileged person. He places the Martin on the counter between them, like evidence in a trial. This is what happens when CEOs play games with working people's lives. We lose everything that matters to us. Victoria reaches toward the guitar, then stops, her hand hovering inches from the polished wood. Connor, please let me explain what really happened. But Connor is already walking toward the door, leaving behind not just his instrument, but any remaining illusion that their connection had been real. Outside the music store, Victoria catches up with him at a red light. You have to listen to me, she pleads, grabbing his arm. The board found out about our friendship and threatened to have me removed as CEO if I didn't prove my ability to make objective decisions about personnel. Connor shakes off her touch, his face a mask of controlled anger. So you chose your bomb over a human being you claim to care about. Victoria's eyes fill with tears, but Connor feels no sympathy. Do you know what they called me in that meeting? A liability to executive reputation? Not a person, not even an employee, just a liability. I tried to save your position, Victoria insists, desperation creeping into her voice. I thought if I could prove that terminating you was a business decision rather than personal, I could protect you from worse consequences. Connor stares at her in disbelief. Worse consequences? Victoria, I can't find work anywhere in this city. Your company didn't just fire me. They destroyed my ability to support my son. The weight of his words settles between them like a stone in still water. Every application I submit gets rejected without explanation. Every contact I call suddenly has nothing available. Your board didn't just want me gone. They wanted me to disappear completely. Victoria's composure finally cracks completely. I know, she whispers. I found out about the blacklist last week. Margaret Ashworth has been making calls to other companies, warning them about inappropriate employee behavior. Connor feels the last of his restraint slip away. And you let it happen. You sat in your ivory tower while they systematically destroyed my life. He steps closer, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. I trusted you, Victoria. I actually thought a CEO could see me as an equal, as someone worth knowing. But I was just your slumming experiment, wasn't I? The accusation hangs in the air like poison gas. Victoria opens her mouth to deny it, then closes it again, realizing that her actions had already provided Connor's answer. I never thought of you that way, she stammers. But Connor is already turning away, his shoulders set with the finality of someone who's heard enough lies to last a lifetime. Goodbye, Victoria. Enjoy spending your family's money on charity drives and underprivileged instruments. Maybe it'll help you sleep better at night. He walks away without looking back, leaving Victoria standing alone on the sidewalk with tears streaming down her face. 2 weeks later, Connor accepts a position with a small delivery company that asks few questions and pays wages that barely cover basic expenses. The job requires him to wear a uniform and drive a van throughout Manhattan, delivering packages to the same buildings where he once worked as maintenance staff. The irony isn't lost on him. He's still serving the wealthy, just from a different angle. Leo tries to hide his disappointment when they have to cancel his guitar lessons, but Connor sees the sadness in his son's eyes. The scholarship covers tuition, but not instrument rental or private instruction. They've sold Connor's guitar, and Leo's teacher requires payment Connor can no longer afford. "It's okay, Dad," Leo assures him with forced brightness. "I can practice at school." Connor ruffles his son's hair, heart aching at the maturity no 9-year-old should need to display. "This is temporary, buddy. We'll get you back to lessons soon." But as weeks pass with no improvement in their situation, Connor wonders if anything will ever truly improve. The blacklisting seems permanent, his career prospects permanently diminished by crossing paths with Victoria Sterling. On a Tuesday afternoon, Connor's delivery route takes him through the Upper East Side's wealthiest neighborhood. Traffic moves slowly through streets lined with townhouses that cost more than most people earn in their entire lives. Connor is checking his next delivery address when he hears the screech of brakes and the sickening crunch of metal against concrete. 50 yards ahead, a black Mercedes has jumped the curb and slammed into a decorative light post, steam rising from its crumpled hood. Connor pulls over immediately, his training from volunteer firefighting classes kicking in before his emotions can catch up. The Mercedes is severely damaged, its driver's side door buckled inward. Through the spider-webbed windshield, Connor can see a woman slumped over the steering wheel, blood trickling from her forehead onto the deployed airbag. It takes him several seconds to recognize Victoria Sterling, unconscious in the wreckage of her expensive car. For one terrible moment, Connor hesitates. This woman destroyed his career, his financial stability, his ability to provide for his son. But Connor's fundamental decency wins out over his anger. He calls 911 while running toward the crashed Mercedes, adrenaline overriding any thoughts of revenge. The driver's door is jammed, but the passenger side opens with some effort. Victoria is breathing but unresponsive, her usually perfect appearance now marred by blood and the chemical smell of deployed airbags. "Victoria, can you hear me?" Connor asks, checking her pulse and looking for signs of serious injury. Her breathing is steady but shallow, and she shows no response to his voice or touch. The paramedics arrive within 6 minutes, professionally efficient as they stabilize Victoria and prepare her for transport to Mount Sinai Hospital. One of them finds a pill bottle in Victoria's purse. Prescription sleeping medication, nearly empty, the paramedic says grimly. "Looks like she took about 15 pills. This wasn't an accident." Connor feels his stomach drop as the implications sink in. Victoria hadn't crashed due to reckless driving or mechanical failure. She deliberately consumed enough sleeping pills to lose consciousness while behind the wheel, turning her Mercedes into a suicide weapon. At the hospital, Connor finds himself in the uncomfortable position of being Victoria's only emergency contact. Her parents are traveling in Europe, her assistant explains, and there are no other personal relationships listed in her files. Connor sits in the waiting room for 3 hours, questioning why he stayed when he could have simply driven away after the ambulance arrived. A doctor finally emerges with news. Victoria will survive, but she'd come dangerously close to permanent brain damage from the drug overdose. She'd been conscious enough to write something before losing control of the car, a letter found in her purse, sealed but unaddressed. The nurse hands Connor the envelope, assuming he's Victoria's boyfriend or husband. Inside, he finds 3 pages of handwritten text that make his hands shake as he reads. "Connor," the letter begins, "by the time you read this, I'll finally be free from the prison I built around myself. I want you to know that loving you was the only real thing I've ever experienced, even though I destroyed it through my own cowardice." The words blur as Connor's eyes fill with unexpected tears, his anger temporarily displaced by the raw pain in Victoria's confession. I need you to understand what really happened, the letter continues. When the board discovered our friendship, they didn't just threaten my job. They threatened to destroy Sterling Corporation's charitable foundation, which provides education funding for 12,000 underprivileged children. They said if I showed emotional compromise regarding personnel decisions, they'd vote me out and dismantle every program I'd built to help people. Connor's breathing becomes shallow as he reads, understanding for the first time the impossible position Victoria had faced. I thought I could save both you and the foundation by making your termination look like a business decision rather than personal favoritism. I never knew about Margaret's blacklist campaign until weeks later. When I confronted her, she said the board had authorized reputation management to prevent future incidents. By then the damage was done and I realized that everything I tried to do to save you had only made things worse. Victoria's handwriting becomes increasingly erratic as the pills took effect. I can't live with the knowledge that my cowardice destroyed the only person who ever saw me as human. I love you, Connor. I'm sorry I wasn't brave enough to fight for us. Connor sits back in the hospital chair, the letter trembling in his hands. The last page contains details about the Sterling Foundation's funding, educational programs for underprivileged children, and Victoria's personal accounts that should be directed to these causes after her death. She'd been preparing to die, planning for it methodically as she did everything else. Connor folds the letter carefully, placing it back in the envelope. The anger that sustained him for weeks has transformed into something more complicated. Understanding mixed with lingering hurt. Compassion tempered by unresolved pain. A nurse approaches. Mr. Mitchell? Ms. Sterling is awake. She's asking for you. Connor follows the nurse down sterile corridors, mentally preparing himself for this unexpected reunion. The private room is dimly lit, monitors beeping steadily beside the hospital bed where Victoria Sterling looks smaller and more vulnerable than he's ever seen her. When Victoria sees him in the doorway, surprise flashes across her pale face, followed immediately by shame. "Why are you here?" she whispers, her voice hoarse from the breathing tube. Connor holds up her letter, its pages now creased from multiple readings. "Because I couldn't let you die, thinking I hated you." Victoria's eyes fill with tears, but Connor continues before she can speak. "I did hate you. For weeks I blamed you for everything that went wrong in my life." "You should hate me," Victoria replies, turning her face away. "I had the power to protect you, and I chose the easy path instead." Connor studies her profile, seeing exhaustion and defeat in every line of her face. "You chose 12,000 children over one man. That's not cowardice. That's an impossible decision that no one should have to make." Victoria's head snaps back toward him, surprise replacing shame in her expression. "You read the whole letter?" Connor nods. 3 times. I needed to understand what really happened before I decided whether to stay or walk away. For several minutes they sit in silence, punctuated only by the steady beeping of Victoria's heart monitor. Connor notices the hospital room's sterility mirrors her penthouse, expensive but impersonal, as if she's just passing through rather than truly inhabiting the space. "I tried to resign after your termination," Victoria finally says, "but my contract includes a clause that prevents me from leaving before age 40 without forfeiting all family assets to distant relatives. If I'd quit, they would have closed the foundation and fired 3,000 employees to maximize short-term profits." Connor absorbs this information slowly, his anger gradually being replaced by a more complex understanding of corporate power structures and family obligations. "So you're trapped." Victoria laughs bitterly. "Golden handcuffs. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. But I can't make a single decision that's truly my own." She looks at Connor with eyes that seem older than her 35 years. "Do you know what's funny? I've been preparing for my own death for months, writing instructions for the foundation's management, setting up trusts for the educational programs. I had everything planned except I didn't expect you to be the one who found me." Connor feels something shift in his chest, anger giving way to a different emotion he isn't ready to name. "Victoria," he says quietly, "why did you want to die?" The question hangs between them like a bridge neither is sure they should cross. Victoria closes her eyes, gathering courage for an honesty she's never attempted before. Because I finally understood what love feels like, and I knew I'd destroyed any chance of keeping it. Her words are barely audible. Every day since you lost your job, I've watched myself become smaller and more cowardly. I couldn't face a future where I had unlimited power, but no one who actually cared whether I lived or died. Connor reaches out slowly and takes Victoria's hand, noting how small and cold it feels in his own work-roughened palm. I cared, he admits. Even when I hated you, I still cared. That's what made the betrayal hurt so much. Victoria's fingers tighten around his, as if his touch is the only thing keeping her anchored to the world. I don't deserve forgiveness, she whispers. I know that, but I need you to know that every moment we spent together was real for me. The coffee conversations, learning guitar, watching you play music for Leo. Those were the only times I felt like myself instead of just a corporate logo. Then don't waste them, Connor says firmly. Don't let the board's manipulation turn you into someone who gives up. Fight back. Victoria's eyes open, focusing on his face with something that looks like hope. How? I'm trapped in a system that punishes any sign of human weakness. Connor squeezes her hand, surprised by his own determination. Then we change the system. Together. The word together seems to startle both of them, implying a future neither had dared to imagine. But as they look at each other in the sterile hospital room, something new begins to take shape between them. Not the naive friendship of their earlier meetings, but something stronger and more honest. Why would you help me after everything that happened? Victoria asks, disbelief coloring her voice. Connor considers the question, thinking of Leo's excitement about music school, of Victoria's impossible choice, of the system that had pitted them against each other. Because there are 12,000 kids who need that foundation, he answers. And because the Victoria Sterling, who taught herself guitar chords at her desk when no one was looking, deserves a chance to live. Victoria studies his face, searching for insincerity and finding none. I don't know if I can fix what Margaret did to your career. One problem at a time, Connor says. First, you need to recover. Then we'll figure out how to deal with Margaret and the board. As he speaks, Connor realizes he's committing to something he never anticipated. Helping the woman who cost him his job, who triggered the worst financial crisis of his post-Sarah life. Yet sitting here, seeing the human beneath the CEO title, he can't bring himself to walk away. Leo's scholarship, Victoria says suddenly. Is he still attending the program? Yes, but we had to sell my guitar and cancel his private lessons. Victoria's expression crumples. I'm so sorry, Connor. I never wanted... I know, he interrupts gently. I understand now. A nurse enters to check Victoria's vitals, giving them both a moment to collect their emotions. When they're alone again, Victoria speaks with newfound determination. The quarterly board meeting is next week. Margaret will expect me to be absent, giving her another opportunity to push her agenda. Her voice strengthens with each word. I need to be there. I need to confront her directly about the blacklisting. Connor shakes his head. You need to recover first. The board can wait. What about your job? Your finances? We'll manage, Connor says, though he's not entirely sure how. Leo and I have faced worse. Victoria's eyes narrow slightly, a glimpse of the CEO emerging through the hospital patient. I may be temporarily incapacitated, but I still have resources. Let me help you, Connor. Not as charity, but as restitution for the harm my company caused. Connor's pride bristles, but practicality wins out. Leo needs stability, needs his music lessons, needs a father who isn't consumed by financial anxiety. We can discuss terms later, he concedes. For now, focus on getting better. As he rises to leave, Victoria catches his hand again. Will you come back tomorrow? The vulnerability in her question reminds Connor of their first meeting, the powerful CEO revealing her human fragility. Despite everything, he finds he can't deny her this simple request. I'll be here, he promises. We have a system to change, remember? A ghost of a smile touches Victoria's lips. Together? Connor nods, the words settling between them with new meaning. Together. Outside the hospital, night has fallen over Manhattan. Connor walks toward the subway, mind spinning with the day's revelations. The letter in his pocket contains truths that have fundamentally altered his understanding of Victoria's actions. She hadn't betrayed him callously. She'd made an impossible choice between one man's job and thousands of children's futures. And when the consequences of that choice became unbearable, she'd chosen what she saw as the only escape. Connor stops at a street corner, looking up at the city skyline. The Sterling building stands illuminated against the night, a monument to power and wealth. Yet within those glass walls, even the CEO remains imprisoned by expectations and obligations. For the first time in weeks, Connor feels the stirring of music in his mind, not the sharp notes of betrayal that had characterized his recent compositions, but something more complex, a melody about understanding, forgiveness, and the possibility of beginning again. As he continues toward the subway, Connor finds himself humming this new tune, giving voice to emotions he's not yet ready to name but can no longer deny. Morning sunlight filters through hospital blinds as Victoria sits upright in bed, her laptop balanced precariously on the tray table. Despite doctors' orders to rest, she's been working since dawn, reviewing Sterling Corporation documents with fierce concentration. Connor enters carrying coffee, stopping short at the sight. This doesn't look like recovery to me. Victoria doesn't look up. Margaret moved the board meeting forward, tomorrow instead of next week. She's taking advantage of your absence. Precisely. Victoria turns the laptop to show him an email. And look at this, a proposal to restructure the foundation. Budget cuts disguised as strategic realignment. Connor sets the coffee beside her. You need to rest, Victoria. What I need is to stop Margaret before she dismantles everything I've built. Victoria winces as she shifts position, her injuries from the crash still painful. She's already presenting the quarterly earnings report in my place. If the board approves her foundation proposals tomorrow, then we'll deal with it. But killing yourself with stress won't help. Victoria's fingers pause over the keyboard. We? I said we'd change the system together, didn't I? Connor pulls up a chair. But first, tell me what we're up against. How does Margaret have so much influence? Victoria sighs, closing the laptop. Her husband sits on the board. 3 other members owe their positions to her recommendations. And she's been with the company since my father was CEO, knows where all the bodies are buried, so to speak. She also seems to have a personal vendetta against you. I've blocked her advancement several times. Margaret wanted my job when my father stepped down, but he chose me instead. Victoria takes a sip of coffee. She's been waiting for me to show weakness ever since. And your friendship with the night janitor gave her ammunition. Victoria meets his eyes directly. Our friendship wasn't a weakness, Connor. It was the only real thing in my life. Margaret recognized that authenticity as a threat to her control. The admission hangs between them, both acknowledging the connection that had formed so unexpectedly. Connor leans forward. So what's the plan? You can't attend the board meeting from a hospital bed. Victoria's expression shifts from CEO determination to something more personal. First, I need to ask you something. The guitar you sold, was it very important to you? The question catches Connor off guard. Sarah gave it to me for our 2nd anniversary. It was the last gift she ever... Understanding crosses Victoria's face. I'm sorry, Connor, truly. It's just an object, he says, though his tone betrays him. Victoria makes a note on her phone. As for the plan, I need to gather evidence of Margaret's manipulation. The blacklisting wasn't just vindictive, it was corporate sabotage using company resources. How do we prove that? We need an ally inside Sterling. Victoria hesitates. Someone with access to HR communications but loyal to me rather than Margaret. Connor considers this. Your assistant? Too closely watched, but... Victoria's eyes light up. David Chen, at Security. He's monitored executive communications for years. And he owes me. I sponsored his daughter's college scholarship. Can you contact him without alerting Margaret? Victoria smiles for the first time in days. I'm still CEO, last I checked. I have channels Margaret doesn't know about. As Victoria reaches for her phone, Connor sees a glimpse of the formidable executive beneath the hospital gown. Determined, strategic, and unwilling to surrender without a fight. That evening, Connor sits with Leo at their kitchen table, helping with homework while trying to explain his frequent hospital visits. So Victoria crashed her car? Leo asks, pencil tapping against his math worksheet. Is she going to be okay? She's getting better, Connor says carefully. But she's going through a tough time at work too. Leo considers this. Is that why you're helping her? Because she helped me get into music school? Connor looks at his son, wondering how to explain the complicated relationship that's developed between himself and Victoria. Partly, but also because sometimes people need friends most when they're struggling. Even though she got you fired? Connor stills. How did you know about that? Leo shrugs with the casual omniscience of children. I heard you on the phone and you started being sad right after you stopped talking about her. It's complicated, buddy. Victoria had to make a really hard choice. Between you and something else? Connor nods, amazed at his son's perceptiveness. Between helping one person, me, and helping thousands of kids who need the foundation's support. Leo processes this, his young face thoughtful. Like in those superhero movies, when they have to choose between saving one person they love or saving a whole city? Something like that. But now you're helping her anyway. Connor smiles ruefully. Life isn't always as simple as staying angry at people who hurt us. Sometimes understanding why they did something changes how we feel. Leo returns to his homework, apparently satisfied. I hope she gets better. She was nice to me, and she liked your music. Thanks, buddy. Are we still poor? Leo asks suddenly. The question tightens Connor's chest. Despite Victoria's offer of financial assistance, he hasn't accepted anything beyond covering Leo's music lessons. Pride, perhaps, or a need to maintain some independence in their unbalanced relationship. We're managing, he answers honestly, and things will improve. Leo nods seriously. Good, because I got picked for the student showcase next month, and they said we need to bring refreshments. Connor feels a surge of pride pushing through financial worries. That's amazing, Leo. First performance at the new school? Leo grins, gap-toothed and excited. Ms. Phillips said I'm precociously talented. That's good, right? That's very good. Connor ruffles his son's hair. We'll figure out the refreshments. Don't worry about that part. After Leo goes to bed, Connor checks his email, finding a message from Victoria with a single line. David's in, meeting tomorrow morning 6 a.m. Bring Leo if needed. He types a quick acknowledgement, then opens a separate browser tab. The online listing for his Martin guitar still appears on the music store's website. Vintage 1967 Martin D28, excellent condition, previous owner, professional musician. Connor stares at the image of Sarah's last gift to him, now priced at $8,995. The practical side of him knows the money matters more than the instrument. It's keeping a roof over Leo's head, food on their table. Yet the loss aches in a way he hadn't anticipated. He closes the laptop, picks up the cheap replacement guitar he purchased from a pawn shop, and begins working on the melody that's been forming in his mind since Victoria's accident. The sound quality is poor, but the music itself, a complex exploration of betrayal, understanding, and cautious redemption, flows more freely than anything he's written since Sarah died. At 6 a.m., Connor and Leo arrive at Mount Sinai Hospital. Leo clutches his school backpack, curious about the early morning adventure, but still sleepy. In Victoria's private room, they find her sitting up in bed, looking more like a CEO despite the hospital gown. Beside her sits a nervous-looking Asian man in his 40s. David Chen, judging by the Sterling Corporation ID clipped to his shirt pocket. Connor, Leo, thank you for coming, Victoria says formally, then softens. Leo, there's a waiting area down the hall with some video games. Would that be okay while we talk grown-up stuff? Leo looks to his father for confirmation. It's right there where we can see you, Connor assures him. Just for a little while. Once Leo settles in the waiting area, David Chen pulls out a tablet. Miss Sterling, I've compiled what you asked for, but... He glances nervously at Connor. Are you sure about involving outsiders? Mr. Mitchell isn't an outsider, Victoria says firmly. He's the primary victim of Margaret's actions, and I trust him completely. David nods, though his expression remains uncertain. I tracked the communications as you requested. There's a clear pattern of targeted interference. He turns the tablet to show them emails from Margaret Ashworth to contacts at major Manhattan maintenance companies, property management firms, and building services. Each message contains similar language about Connor. Security risk? Inappropriate workplace behavior, not recommended for rehire. She systematically destroyed your employment prospects, Victoria says quietly, using Sterling resources and influence. Connor scrolls through the emails, anger mixing with vindication. This is why no one would hire me. It goes deeper, David continues. Look at these board communications. He pulls up a series of messages between Margaret and board members, dated before Connor's termination. The language is careful, corporate, but the implication clear. Victoria's personal attachment to a maintenance employee represented concerning judgment and potential leadership instability. She was building a case against you, Connor realizes. Victoria nods grimly, using you as leverage to question my leadership and eventually take control of the foundation. There's more, David says. After your accident, Margaret began implementing changes without board approval. Staff reductions at the foundation, program cuts disguised as efficiency measures. She's been using your absence to dismantle your work. Victoria's expression hardens. What about the blacklisting? Was that board approved? David shakes his head. No official authorization. Margaret used company resources for personal vendettas. That's a clear ethics violation. Victoria turns to Connor. This is enough to challenge her at tomorrow's meeting, but I need to be there in person. The doctors haven't cleared you for release, Connor points out. Details, Victoria waves dismissively. I've arranged for private medical transport and assistance. I'll attend that meeting if they have to wheel me in. David looks increasingly uncomfortable. Ms. Sterling, if Margaret discovers I've provided this information, she won't, Victoria assures him. And once this is resolved, you'll be appropriately recognized for your integrity. Sterling Corporation still values loyalty to its actual leadership. After David leaves, Connor moves closer to Victoria's bedside. You're really going to the meeting tomorrow, against medical advice? I have to. It may be my only chance to save the foundation and to clear your name. Connor studies her face, noting the determination beneath lingering pallor. What can I do to help? Victoria hesitates. I need to ask something significant. Would you be willing to attend the meeting with me as a witness to Margaret's actions? You want me to face the board that fired me and blacklisted me? Yes. Your presence makes Margaret's unethical behavior concrete for them. It's no longer abstract policy discussions, but a real person whose life was damaged. Connor considers the request. Entering Sterling Corporation headquarters, facing the board members who deemed him expendable, standing beside Victoria in a corporate showdown, it's far beyond his comfort zone. I'm not good at corporate politics, Victoria. I'm a musician who cleans floors. You're more than that, Victoria says firmly. You're someone who understands both worlds, the executive floor and the maintenance corridors. That perspective matters. Connor thinks of Leo's upcoming showcase, of the foundation's 12,000 beneficiaries, of Victoria risking her health to fight. All right, I'll come, but I'll need something decent to wear. Delivery uniforms probably won't impress your board. Victoria smiles, relief evident in her expression. Thank you, Connor, and don't worry about the clothing. I'll have something delivered to your apartment today. Leo returns from the waiting area, yawning widely. Dad, I'm hungry. Connor checks his watch. We should get you to school. Big math test today, remember? As they prepare to leave, Leo approaches Victoria's bed. I hope you feel better soon, Ms. Victoria. Dad says you're fighting bad guys at your company. Victoria laughs softly. Something like that, Leo. Dad always says when things are hard, you just have to play through the tough parts until you get to the good music again. Victoria's eyes meet Connor's over Leo's head. Your dad is very wise. I'm trying to find the good music again. After Connor and Leo depart, Victoria reopens her laptop, determination fueling her despite physical pain. Tomorrow's confrontation will require all her strategic skill and a strength she hadn't known she possessed until Connor Mitchell showed her that authentic connection wasn't weakness, but its own kind of power. The next morning, Connor stands before his bathroom mirror, adjusting the tie of a suit far more expensive than anything he's ever owned. The delivery arrived yesterday afternoon. Italian wool in perfect charcoal gray, crisp white shirt, silk tie, even polished leather shoes in precisely his size. A note accompanied the package. Armor for tomorrow's battle. Don't argue about the pendant. Consider it restitution of V. Connor barely recognizes himself in the mirror. The man staring back looks like he belongs in corporate boardrooms, not cleaning them after hours. He thinks of Victoria, who moves between these worlds with practiced ease, but feels authentic in neither. Leo emerges from his bedroom, eyes widening at his father's transformation. "Whoa, Dad, you look like a businessman." "Just for today," Connor assures him. "Mrs. Rodriguez will pick you up from school. I might be late tonight." "Because you're helping Victoria fight the bad guys?" Connor smiles at his son's simplified narrative. "Because we're trying to fix something that went wrong for a lot of people, not just us." Leo nods solemnly. "Like superheroes." "Not quite that dramatic, buddy." But as Connor leaves their apartment building to meet the car Victoria arranged, he does feel a certain gravity to the day ahead. Something fundamental will change, regardless of the outcome. The sleek town car delivers him to Mount Sinai, where medical staff help Victoria into the vehicle. She wears a perfectly tailored business suit despite her injuries, her hair and makeup impeccable. The armor of Victoria Sterling. "You clean up nicely," she comments as the car pulls away from the hospital. "You're doing," Connor gestures to the suit, "though I feel like I'm in costume." "Welcome to corporate America," Victoria says dryly. "We're all in costume most of the time." During the drive to Sterling headquarters, Victoria briefs Connor on the meeting's format, the board members' personalities, the strategy they'll employ. Connor listens carefully, though doubt creeps in about his role in this high-stakes corporate theater. What if they simply refuse to listen? I'm still just a former janitor to them. Victoria's expression softens briefly. "You're not just anything, Connor. You're the evidence of Margaret's unethical behavior. And more importantly, you're someone who reminds me why this fight matters." As the Sterling building comes into view, Victoria straightens her posture despite obvious pain, the CEO mask sliding into place. Connor watches the transformation with new understanding, not a rejection of authenticity, but a necessary tool for the environment she navigates. "Ready?" she asks as the car stops at the executive entrance. Connor nods, surprising himself with his answer. "Ready." The Sterling Corporation boardroom falls silent as Victoria enters, leaning slightly on a cane, but otherwise projecting complete command. The shock on the board members' faces quickly gives way to murmurs as Connor follows behind her. Margaret Ashworth, standing at the head of the table mid-presentation, freezes momentarily before recovering. "Victoria, we had no idea you'd be discharged so soon. What a pleasant surprise." "I'm sure," Victoria replies coolly, taking her position at the table's head, effectively displacing Margaret. "As CEO, I wouldn't miss such an important meeting, especially when I see unauthorized changes to foundation programs on the agenda." Thomas Reynolds, the board chairman, clears his throat uncomfortably. "Victoria, while we're certainly pleased to see your recovery progressing, the doctors informed us you'd be unavailable for at least another week." "Misinformation seems to be a recurring theme lately," Victoria says, nodding toward Connor. "You all remember Connor Mitchell?" The board members shift uneasily, several avoiding eye contact. "Ms. Sterling," Margaret interjects, "this is a closed board meeting. Mr. Mitchell has no standing to attend." "On the contrary," Victoria opens a folder David prepared. "Mr. Mitchell is here as a witness to corporate ethics violations that the board should be immediately concerned about." She distributes copies of emails documenting Margaret's blacklisting campaign. These communications, sent using Sterling Corporation resources and on company time, constitute a deliberate effort to destroy a former employee's career prospects through false statements about his character and performance. The board members review the documents with increasing discomfort. Margaret's face hardens. "This is a gross invasion of privacy. Monitoring my communications is standard procedure for executive-level correspondence," Victoria completes smoothly. "As you well know, Margaret, all Sterling executives sign acknowledgement of communication monitoring in our contracts." Thomas Reynolds frowns at the emails. "Margaret, these communications appear to go well beyond standard non-rehire notifications." "I was protecting the company's interests," Margaret insists. "After Ms. Sterling demonstrated concerning personal involvement with maintenance staff, risk management was appropriate." Victoria remains calm. Was it also risk management to implement unauthorized cuts to foundation programs during my medical leave? Or to prepare a case for my removal based on manufactured concerns about my leadership? She distributes another set of documents. Margaret's internal communications with board allies, systematically undermining Victoria's position. Connor observes the corporate chess match with fascination. Victoria maneuvers with precision, neither raising her voice nor showing the anger he knows she feels. This is her element, not the sterile penthouse or the lonely executive office, but the strategic deployment of power for a purpose she believes in. Margaret's composure begins to crack. These selective documents present a distorted picture. My concerns about Victoria's judgment are valid. Her emotional attachment to the foundation has consistently overridden shareholder interests. Is that your assessment of our education initiatives, Margaret? Victoria asks. That they're merely my emotional attachment rather than strategic community investment? Before Margaret can respond, Victoria continues. Perhaps we should hear from someone directly affected by both the foundation's work and Margaret's actions. She turns to Connor. Mr. Mitchell, would you share your perspective with the board? Connor feels 12 pairs of eyes turn to him. Executives who probably earn his annual salary in a week, who see maintenance staff as interchangeable budget items. He clears his throat, finding his voice. My son Leo received a scholarship through the Sterling Foundation's Music Education Initiative. That opportunity changed his life, gave him access to training we could never afford otherwise. Connor meets the gaze of each board member in turn. When I was terminated from Sterling Corporation, I accepted it as a business decision. What I couldn't understand was why every maintenance position in Manhattan suddenly became unavailable to me. He gestures to the emails. Now I know. Ms. Ashworth didn't just end my employment here. She systematically destroyed my ability to work anywhere in this city. Not because of performance issues, my reviews were excellent, but because of my friendship with Victoria. The board shifts uncomfortably as Connor continues. I'm not here asking for my job back. I'm here because the same person who destroyed my career is now dismantling programs that help thousands of children like my son. Children who deserve opportunities regardless of their parents' income or position. Margaret scoffs. This emotional appeal doesn't address the financial reality. The foundation's expanded budget diverts potential dividends from shareholders. Thomas Reynolds turns to Victoria. She does raise a valid concern, Victoria. The foundation's budget has increased substantially under your leadership. Victoria nods. And so have our tax benefits, community goodwill, and recruitment advantages. The foundation isn't charity, it's strategic investment in communities where we operate. She projects a slide showing the correlation between foundation initiatives and improved public perception, customer loyalty, and employee retention. These programs deliver measurable returns beyond their humanitarian value. For the next hour, Victoria methodically addresses each of Margaret's accusations, presenting evidence of the foundation's value while highlighting Margaret's ethical violations. Connor watches her command the room despite her physical pain, never once raising her voice yet never conceding ground. Finally, Thomas Reynolds calls for a brief recess. As board members file out for coffee, Margaret approaches Victoria with cold fury. You may win this round, but don't think this ends here. The board still questions your judgment, particularly your attachment to certain employees. Her gaze shifts pointedly to Connor. Victoria stands, meeting Margaret's height despite her injuries. I understand something now that you never will, Margaret. Leadership isn't about power over others. It's about creating something worth following, something that matters beyond quarterly reports. How inspirational, Margaret sneers. Perhaps you should write greeting cards instead of running a corporation. After she stalks away, Connor moves to Victoria's side. Are you all right? You should sit down. Victoria's composure wavers slightly, pain evident in her eyes. I just need to finish this. The board's still wavering. You've presented a strong case. What more can you do? Victoria hesitates. There's one more card to play, but I've been reluctant to use it. It's personal. Before Connor can inquire further, the board members return, session resuming with palpable tension. Thomas Reynolds addresses Victoria directly. We've reviewed the evidence concerning Margaret's actions regarding Mr. Mitchell's employment prospects. The board agrees these communications were inappropriate and exceed our ethical guidelines. Margaret begins to protest, but Reynolds continues. However, concerns remain about foundation expenditures and your judgment regarding certain personal associations. He glances briefly at Connor. The board needs assurance that Sterling Corporation's interests remain your priority. Victoria straightens, decision made. If assurances are what you need, I'm prepared to offer something concrete. She opens a folder Connor hasn't seen before. These are the terms of my inheritance and controlling interest in Sterling Corporation. As you know, my father structured my ownership to prevent any significant changes until I reach 40. The board members lean forward with interest. I've had my attorneys prepare an alternative arrangement, Victoria continues. I'm willing to place my personal Sterling holdings, separate from my CEO compensation, into a trust that funds the foundation independently. This would ensure the education initiatives continue regardless of quarterly pressures, while maintaining expected shareholder dividends from operating income. Murmurs circulate around the table. Thomas Reynolds looks genuinely surprised. Victoria, that's your personal inheritance. Nearly $300 million in assets. I'm aware of the value, Victoria says calmly. I'm also aware of what matters to me. The foundation's work shouldn't depend on boardroom politics or personal vendettas. Connor stares at Victoria, understanding the magnitude of her offer. She's sacrificing her personal wealth to protect both the foundation and her authority as CEO, choosing purpose over privilege. Margaret laughs incredulously. This is precisely the emotional decision-making I've been concerned about. Giving away a fortune for charity cases? Not giving away, Victoria corrects. Investing in something with lasting value, something that can't be measured in quarterly returns. She turns to the board. My proposal ensures shareholders receive their expected dividends while the foundation continues its work. You lose nothing. Thousands of children gain everything. As the board discusses Victoria's proposal, Connor leans closer to her. You never mentioned this plan. It was a last resort, she admits quietly. But watching you stand up to the board, a man who lost everything yet still advocates for others, made me realize some things are worth sacrificing for. The board chairman calls for order. We need time to review this proposal with legal counsel. In the meantime, regarding Ms. Ashworth's actions, Thomas Reynolds fixes Margaret with a stern look. The board finds your unauthorized communications regarding Mr. Mitchell and your unilateral changes to foundation programs during Ms. Sterling's absence to be serious ethical violations. Will require your immediate resignation. Margaret's face flushes with anger. You can't be serious. After everything I've done for this company, your severance terms will be generous, Reynolds continues impassively. But your position is untenable given these revelations. As security arrives to escort Margaret from the building, she turns to Victoria with undisguised hatred. You'll regret this, both of you. After Margaret's departure, the meeting concludes with tentative approval of Victoria's trust proposal pending legal review. The board agrees to reinstate the foundation programs Margaret had cut and to issue a corporate apology to Connor with recommendations to counter the blacklisting's effects. As board members file out, several approach Connor directly, offering business cards and connections. The corporate world's version of atonement. When they are finally alone in the boardroom, Victoria exhales slowly, the CEO mask slipping to reveal exhaustion beneath. Well, that was incredible, Connor finishes. You were incredible. Victoria smiles faintly. We were incredible. I couldn't have done this without you. You offered your entire inheritance, Victoria. That was all you. It's just money, she says, though they both know it represents more. Her independence from the Sterling legacy, her freedom to choose her own path. Connor helps her stand, supporting her as pain from her injuries resurfaces now that the adrenaline fades. Let's get you back to the hospital before your doctors send out a search party. As they leave the boardroom, Victoria pauses in the doorway, looking back at the space where she's fought countless corporate battles. For the first time, I feel like I actually accomplished something that matters here. You did, Connor assures her. 12,000 somethings, plus one stubborn former janitor and his musically gifted son. Victoria laughs softly, leaning against him as they walk toward the elevator. Speaking of which, when is Leo's next performance? I'd like to attend, if that's all right with you. He'd love that, Connor says, and so would I. As the elevator descends, Connor realizes they've achieved something neither expected when they first met in that empty ballroom months ago. A victory not just against corporate politics, but against the isolation that had defined both their lives since losing what mattered most to them. 3 weeks later, Connor stands in Central Park at their familiar bench, watching Leo chase pigeons with the same enthusiasm he'd shown before their world had fallen apart. The guitar in Connor's hands is the same Martin he had almost sold, returned to him through an anonymous purchase from the music store and delivered to his apartment with a simple note. Music shouldn't stay inside. V. He'd started playing in coffee shops again, small gigs that brought in modest income, but more importantly reminded him who he was beneath the survival mode that had consumed him for months. A familiar figure approaches along the path, moving with less confidence than the Victoria Sterling who once commanded boardrooms. She carries a small canvas bag and wears jeans that actually look like they've been worn before, her hair loose and natural rather than styled into corporate perfection. Connor doesn't look up from his guitar, but he shifts slightly on the bench, making room for her to sit. The gesture is subtle but unmistakable, an invitation without pressure, an acknowledgement of her presence without demand. Victoria sits down carefully, leaving space between them, but close enough that Connor can smell her shampoo. Something simple and floral that's nothing like the expensive perfume she'd worn during their earlier encounters. From her bag, she withdraws a notebook filled with handwritten music, pages covered with chord progressions, and lyrics that show evidence of extensive revision. "I've been writing," she says simply, not looking at Connor but speaking to the air between them. "Songs. Mostly terrible songs about making mistakes and trying to find courage you didn't know you had." Leo spots Victoria and runs over with uncomplicated joy, his face lighting up. "Victoria, did you hear Dad playing? He's been practicing new songs every day." The boy's enthusiasm is infectious, and Victoria smiles. Not the polished CEO expression Connor remembers, but something genuine and unguarded. "I did hear him. He sounds wonderful." She looks at Connor for the first time since arriving. Better than before, actually. There's something different in the music. Connor nods slowly, understanding what she means. Pain had changed his songwriting, adding depth and complexity that success and happiness alone couldn't provide. "I have something for you," Victoria says, pulling a single sheet of music from her notebook. "It's not very good, and I probably got the chord progressions wrong, but..." She hands Connor a song titled "The Space Between Us," written in careful handwriting that shows the patience of someone learning a completely new language. Connor studies the notes and lyrics, recognizing Victoria's story woven through verses about glass towers and golden prisons, about learning that love required risking everything you thought protected you. "This is beautiful," he says quietly, and the chord progressions are actually quite sophisticated. Victoria flushes with pleasure at the compliment, looking younger than her 35 years. "I've been taking lessons. Turns out there are teachers who make house calls for students who can't leave their circumstances." Connor understands the coded language. Victoria is still bound by sterling obligations. The board accepted her trust proposal, but retained her as CEO with a revised contract. She's finding small rebellions, creating pockets of authenticity within the constraints of her corporate life. "Would you..." Connor hesitates, then decides to trust the fragile piece they've built. "Would you like to play it together, your song?" Victoria's eyes widen with surprise and nervous excitement. "I'm not good enough yet. I'll probably mess up the timing." Connor smiles, the first completely natural expression he's given her since the hospital. "Everyone messes up the timing at first. That's how you learn to find the rhythm that works for you instead of trying to follow someone else's beat." They spend the next hour working through Victoria's song, Connor playing the primary melody, while Victoria attempts the simpler chord progressions she'd written. She was right about messing up the timing, but Connor is patient, counting beats aloud and adjusting his own playing to accommodate her learning pace. Leo provides enthusiastic, if not entirely accurate, percussion by clapping along, his joy infectious enough to make both adults laugh when Victoria's fingers fumble particularly badly on a chord change. As the afternoon light begins to fade, Victoria packs her notebook away with the careful attention of someone who's learned to treasure small, precious things. "I have to go," she says, but without the urgency that had always marked her departures during their earlier friendship. Board meeting at 7. We're discussing the expansion of the educational foundation. Connor nods, understanding that her obligations haven't disappeared, but that she's finding ways to use her position for purposes that feel meaningful rather than just profitable. Victoria, Connor says as she stands to leave. She turns back, eyebrows raised in question. Same time next week, if you want to keep working on the song. The invitation is casual but carries weight they both recognize. Victoria's smile is soft and genuine. I'd like that, if you're sure you don't mind teaching a very slow student. Connor looks at Leo, who is still chasing pigeons with endless optimism, then back at Victoria. Everyone deserves a chance to make music, he says, especially people who've never been allowed to try. Victoria walks away through the golden afternoon light, her steps lighter than they've been in months. Connor watches her go, then looks down at the song she's written. The lyrics speak of distances that couldn't be measured in miles, of learning to build bridges across differences that seemed impossible to span. It isn't a love song in any traditional sense, but something perhaps more valuable, a song about two people learning to see each other clearly, despite the barriers that circumstances had built between them. As Connor plays through Victoria's melody one more time, Leo settles beside him on the bench, resting his head against his father's shoulder with the casual affection that makes everything else worthwhile. "Dad, do you like Victoria?" the boy asks with characteristic directness. Connor considers the question seriously, watching the spot where Victoria disappeared around a bend in the path. "I think I'm learning to," he answers honestly. "Sometimes the best things take time to understand properly." The music drifts across the park as evening approaches, a simple melody that speaks of second chances and the courage required to remain open to possibility even after experiencing profound disappointment. It isn't a perfect song, and it wouldn't change the world, but it's honest in a way that feels rare and valuable. Connor plays until the last light fades, then packs his guitar and walks home with Leo, carrying Victoria's music and the quiet hope that some bridges, once built, could bear the weight of two people brave enough to meet in the middle. In the distance, the Sterling Corporation building rises into the Manhattan sky like a monument to power and ambition. But somewhere within its glass and steel walls, a woman sits writing songs about finding her voice. And for the first time in her adult life, the building feels less like a prison and more like a place where she's learning to be. 6 months later, autumn paints Central Park in fiery hues of orange and gold. Victoria sits at her desk reviewing quarterly reports, pausing occasionally to glance at the framed photo now displayed prominently beside her computer. Leo's first performance at the Manhattan School of Music, the boy beaming with his guitar, while Connor stands proudly beside him. Victoria herself appears in the background, slightly blurred but unmistakably present. Her assistant knocks lightly. "Miss Sterling, the Foundation Committee is ready in Conference Room A." "Thank you, Jessica." Victoria gathers her materials, moving with the confidence of someone fully recovered from physical injuries, though occasional pain still reminds her of that desperate day. The conference room buzzes with activity. Educators, program directors, community representatives, and several Sterling board members. The atmosphere differs markedly from the traditional corporate meetings. Laughter occasionally punctuates serious discussion. Passion tempers pragmatism. Victoria takes her position at the head of the table, but doesn't immediately call for order. Instead, she observes the animated conversations, the genuine enthusiasm. This committee, her innovation following the confrontation with Margaret, brings together stakeholders from all levels of the Foundation's work, from boardroom to classroom. "Good morning, everyone," she finally says, the room quieting respectfully. "Before we begin, I'd like to introduce our newest committee member." All heads turn as Connor enters, carrying a portfolio case rather than a cleaning cart. He wears business casual attire, a significant upgrade from maintenance uniforms but deliberately less formal than corporate suits. Many of you know Connor Mitchell already. His son Leo is one of our most promising music scholars, and Connor himself has been consulting on our expanded arts curriculum. Connor nods to the group, taking the empty seat Victoria has saved beside her own, a symbolic positioning not lost on the board members present. "Today," Victoria continues, "I'm pleased to announce Connor will be joining us permanently as the Foundation's new Community Outreach Director, developing programs that connect our educational initiatives with local arts organizations." Applause follows the announcement. Connor accepts congratulations with quiet dignity, though Victoria notices the slight flush of his neck, still uncomfortable in the spotlight after years of working invisibly in the background. Connor brings a unique perspective, Victoria explains. He understands both the parents' and artists' viewpoints, and his experience with diverse communities throughout Manhattan will help us reach students who might otherwise miss these opportunities. The meeting proceeds efficiently, Victoria guiding discussions with practiced skill while ensuring every voice receives consideration. Connor contributes thoughtfully when appropriate, his insights clearly valued by the committee. When the meeting concludes, Victoria and Connor remain as others file out, the comfortable silence between them a testament to months of rebuilt trust. Community Outreach Director, Connor says, shaking his head slightly. Still feels strange to have an actual office in this building. Having second thoughts? Victoria asks, organizing her notes. No, just adjusting to the view from this side of the glass walls. He studies her profile. How about you? Any regrets about restructuring the foundation? Victoria considers the question seriously. The board still questions my excessive philanthropic focus. Thomas reminded me just yesterday that we're a corporation, not a charity. And what did you tell him? A smile plays at Victoria's lips. That sustainable community investment yields better long-term returns than quarterly profit maximization. You spoke corporate to him, Connor laughs. It's still the language they understand best. Victoria stands, gathering her materials. Speaking of language, Leo's showcase is tonight, right? Connor nods. 7 o'clock. He's been practicing that new piece religiously. The one he wrote himself? Yes, he's keeping it secret. Won't even play it for me. Says it needs to be a surprise. Victoria checks her schedule on her tablet. I've cleared my evening. I'll meet you there. We'd like that, Connor says simply. As they walk toward the elevator, employees nod respectfully to Victoria while also acknowledging Connor. A subtle but significant change from the invisibility of his maintenance days. Inside the elevator, Victoria presses the button for the executive floor while Connor selects the lobby. Lunch meeting? Victoria inquires. Coffee shop interview, actually. The Times is doing a feature on musicians who found second careers. Victoria raises an eyebrow. You didn't mention that. Connor shrugs lightly. Didn't seem important. Just a small profile. Connor Mitchell, former maintenance worker, current foundation director, and still a talented musician performing weekends at village coffee houses. That's definitely noteworthy. The elevator reaches the lobby, doors opening to the bustling Sterling atrium. See you tonight, Connor says, stepping out. Victoria impulsively reaches for the door hold button. Connor, bring your guitar to the showcase. If there's time after Leo's performance, understanding crosses his features. You want to play your song in public? If you think it's ready. The uncertainty in her voice, so different from her boardroom confidence, reminds Connor how vulnerable Victoria still feels about her musical abilities. It's ready, he assures her, and so are you. The elevator doors close between them, but the connection remains. A bridge carefully reconstructed over months of Sunday afternoons in the park, weeknight coffee conversations, and shared purpose in the foundation's work. Leo paces backstage at the Manhattan School of Music auditorium, clutching his guitar with nervous energy. Other students prepare their instruments around him, some practicing last-minute phrases, others sitting in meditative concentration. Connor adjusts his son's tie, pride overwhelming any lingering financial anxieties. The past 6 months have transformed their circumstances. Connor's new position provides stability. His weekend music performances bring in additional income, and more importantly, restore the creative fulfillment he'd lost after Sarah's death. You're going to be amazing, buddy, Leo nods seriously. I just want my song to be perfect. I've been working on it forever. Music isn't about perfection, remember? It's about feeling, Leo finishes. I know, Dad, but this song is really important. Connor kneels to his son's eye level. Any particular reason? Leo hesitates. It's for Mom, and also kind of for Victoria. The admission catches Connor off guard. For both of them? Yeah, is that weird? Mom's not here anymore, but Victoria is, and she helps us and likes music too. Leo trails off uncertainly. Connor feels a complex emotion swell in his chest. Gratitude mixed with lingering grief. hope tempered by caution. It's not weird at all, buddy. I think it's beautiful that you want to honor both of them. Leo's expression brightens. Victoria's coming tonight, right? Front row, Connor confirms. She rescheduled a dinner with the mayor to be here. Whoa, that's important. You're important, Connor says simply. A program coordinator appears, calling students to line up. Connor gives Leo a quick hug before heading to the audience, finding his seat in the front row, where Victoria has saved him a place. She's dressed more casually than her work attire, but still elegantly. Dark jeans, silk blouse, subtle jewelry. The CEO is present in her perfect posture, but the woman who writes songs in the park shows in her unguarded smile. How's our musician? She asks as Connor sits beside her. The casual R doesn't escape Connor's notice. Nervous but ready, his piece is apparently very special tonight. The lights dim as the showcase begins. Young musicians perform with varying degrees of skill and confidence. Some technically perfect but mechanical, others less polished but playing with genuine emotion. When Leo's name is announced, Connor and Victoria exchange a quick glance of shared anticipation. The boy walks center stage, looking impossibly small under the spotlights, yet carrying himself with quiet determination. Good evening, Leo addresses the audience with remarkable poise for a 9-year-old. I wrote this piece myself. It's called Two Kinds of Love, and it's dedicated to my mom in heaven and to my dad's friend Victoria, who helped me come to this school. Connor feels Victoria stiffen slightly beside him, surprise evident in her posture. On stage, Leo begins to play, a melody that starts with melancholy notes clearly inspired by Connor's song for Sarah, then gradually transforms into something more hopeful, incorporating elements reminiscent of Victoria's composition. The piece isn't technically perfect, but the emotional honesty in Leo's playing captivates the audience. Connor feels tears gathering as he recognizes his son's profound statement, acknowledging the love lost while embracing the new connections forming in their lives. Beside him, Victoria sits perfectly still, her usual composure faltering as a single tear tracks down her cheek. Without thinking, Connor reaches over, briefly squeezing her hand. She returns the pressure, neither looking away from Leo's performance, but both anchoring each other through the emotional moment. When Leo finishes, the audience erupts in applause. The boy bows with a gap-toothed smile that's pure 9-year-old joy, his earlier nervousness forgotten in the success of his musical message. After the showcase concludes, they find Leo in the reception area, surrounded by teachers and fellow students offering congratulations. Dad, Victoria, did you like it? Leo breaks away, rushing toward them. Connor lifts his son in a proud embrace. It was incredible, buddy, absolutely incredible. When Connor sets him down, Leo turns to Victoria with anxious expectation. Was it okay that I dedicated it to you too? I didn't ask first. Victoria kneels to Leo's level, public image forgotten as emotion overtakes corporate poise. It was the greatest honor anyone has ever given me, she says, voice thick with sincerity. Thank you, Leo. The boy beams, then notices the guitar case Connor carries. Are you guys going to play too? Victoria glances at Connor questioningly. There's an empty practice room down the hall, Connor suggests. If you're still up for it, Victoria nods, unexpected determination replacing her usual hesitation about performing. I think, after Leo's courage, I can manage a simple song. They find a small practice room with a piano and several chairs. Leo sits cross-legged on the floor, excited to be the audience for a change. Connor removes his guitar, tuning it quickly while Victoria takes a steadying breath. Ready? Connor asks. As I'll ever be. Connor begins the introduction to Victoria's song, the melody they've practiced for months in the park. Victoria joins with surprising confidence, her voice soft but steady as she sings lyrics about glass towers and invisible walls, about finding authentic connection in unexpected places. Leo watches with rapt attention, witnessing a side of Victoria Sterling the corporate world never sees. Vulnerable, creative, genuinely present in the moment, rather than calculating 3 steps ahead. When they finish, Leo applauds enthusiastically. That was awesome, Victoria. I didn't know you could sing. Neither did I, really, she admits with a laugh. This is all very new to me. Dad says it's never too late to find your music. Victoria meets Connor's eyes over the boy's head. Your dad is very wise. As they gather their belongings to leave, Leo yawns widely, the excitement of the evening catching up with him. Someone needs bedtime, Connor observes. Can Victoria come for ice cream first? Leo asks. We always get ice cream after performances. Connor looks to Victoria, who checks her watch. I think ice cream can be arranged, as long as it's quick. Growing musicians need their sleep. Outside the school, autumn wind whips fallen leaves around their feet as they walk toward the nearby ice cream parlor. Leo skips ahead, energy momentarily renewed by the promise of dessert. Thank you for coming tonight, Connor says quietly. It meant everything to him. I wouldn't have missed it. Victoria watches Leo's exuberant progress. His piece was, I don't have words, casually. He surprised me too. I knew he was working on something special, but I had no idea he was processing all of that. Victoria hesitates. Is it uncomfortable for you that he included me in something so personal? Connor considers the question carefully. 6 months ago, maybe, but now, he shakes his head. Leo sees the truth more clearly than adults sometimes. He understands that hearts can expand without betraying what came before. The implication hangs between them, neither quite ready to address it directly, but both increasingly aware of the connection that has developed beyond friendship. At the ice cream shop, Leo devours a sundae while describing every detail of the showcase from his perspective. Connor and Victoria listen attentively, occasionally exchanging glances of shared amusement at his enthusiasm. As they prepare to leave, Leo suddenly asks, Victoria, do you have to go home right away? Could you come over instead? I want to show you my new music books. Victoria looks to Connor, not wanting to overstep. They've maintained careful boundaries, park meetings, public performances, foundation work, but haven't crossed into each other's private spaces since the early guitar lessons in Victoria's penthouse. It's getting late, buddy, Connor says gently. Victoria probably has work tomorrow. Actually, Victoria interjects, I don't have any early meetings. If it's not an imposition, the invitation hangs unfinished, both adults recognizing a potential turning point. We'd love to have you, Connor decides. Our place isn't exactly a penthouse, though. Victoria smiles. After seeing where you work, it seems only fair you see where I live. Connor's apartment in Washington Heights presents a stark contrast to Victoria's sterile penthouse. Books overflow modest shelves, musical instruments occupy various corners, and photographs cover the walls, mostly of Leo at different ages, several featuring Sarah, and now a few recent additions, including Victoria at foundation events. Leo eagerly gives Victoria the tour, proudly showing his room with its music posters and homework desk, explaining each treasure with 9-year-old importance. And this is my mom, Leo says, pointing to a framed photo on his nightstand. Dad says I have her eyes and her musical talent. Victoria studies the photograph of the beautiful woman with Leo's expressive eyes. Your dad is right. You look just like her. Dad says she's watching me from heaven and was definitely at my performance tonight. Victoria nods seriously. I believe that too. Leo yawns again, the excitement finally giving way to exhaustion. Connor appears in the doorway. Bedtime, musician. School tomorrow. After Leo changes into pajamas and brushes his teeth, he surprises Victoria with a quick hug. Thanks for coming to my performance, and for helping Dad not be sad all the time. Before Victoria can respond, Leo climbs into bed, Connor stepping forward to tuck him in. Victoria moves to the living room, giving father and son their private moment while absorbing the simple statement that carries such profound meaning. Connor joins her minutes later, carrying 2 glasses of wine. He's out already, performance adrenaline crash. Victoria accepts the wine, settling onto the comfortable, if slightly worn couch. Your home is lovely, Connor. It feels lived in, real. Unlike your museum-quality penthouse, Connor teases gently. Exactly unlike that, Victoria admits. I've been thinking about moving, actually. Somewhere smaller, less sterile. Really? Giving up the Upper East Side view? Victoria traces the rim of her glass thoughtfully. The view was always more impressive than meaningful. I think I'd prefer fewer square feet with more actual living. Connor observes her carefully, noting how naturally she fits into his modest living room. Victoria Sterling, CEO, looking completely at ease on a second-hand couch in Washington Heights. Leo's song tonight, Victoria says after a comfortable silence. It made me realize something, and what's that? Children understand that love isn't finite. Adults overcomplicate everything with guilt and categories and propriety. She meets his eyes directly. Leo simply sees people who care about each other and wonders why that isn't enough. Connor sets his wine down, turning to face her fully. And what do you see, Victoria? I see a man who taught me that authenticity isn't weakness, who helped me find my voice, literally and figuratively. Her voice grows softer. I see someone I've been falling in love with for months, but have been too afraid to acknowledge. And the admission hangs between them. Victoria's corporate confidence nowhere to be found in this moment of complete vulnerability. Connor reaches for her hand, his calloused fingers entwining with her manicured ones. I see a woman who chose 12,000 children over her own interests, who sacrificed her inheritance to protect something meaningful, who writes songs about bridges between worlds because she's brave enough to cross them. He moves closer, the distance between CEO and maintenance worker, between privilege and struggle, between past losses and future possibilities gradually disappearing. Sarah will always be Leo's mother, Connor says quietly. Nothing changes that. But my heart didn't stop when hers did. It just took the right person to remind it how to beat properly again. Victoria's other hand rises to his face, tracing the lines that grief and resilience have etched there. Are we really doing this? The janitor and the CEO? Former janitor, Connor corrects with a smile. Current musician and foundation director. Still a significant leap across social boundaries. Maybe those boundaries only existed because people didn't question them. Connor's hand covers hers against his cheek. Or maybe we're just two people who found each other when we both needed someone who could really see us. The kiss when it comes feels inevitable, not a beginning so much as an acknowledgement of what has been developing through coffee machine conversations, park bench guitar lessons, corporate confrontations, and shared purpose in creating opportunities for children like Leo. When they part, Victoria's usual perfect composure has vanished, replaced by something far more valuable. Authentic emotion, unfiltered by corporate expectations or family legacy. I should go, she whispers, though she makes no move to leave. Early foundation meeting tomorrow. I know. I'll be there too. Remember? Victoria laughs softly. That's still strange to me, having you in the boardroom instead of cleaning it after hours. Life takes unexpected turns. Connor brushes a strand of hair from her face, like CEOs learning guitar and janitors becoming directors. And two people from completely different worlds finding common ground in music and purpose. Connor walks Victoria to the door, neither rushing the moment. Will you come to Leo's next performance? Try to stop me, Victoria answers, though I think we should probably talk to him about this development. He's already figured it out, Connor says. That song wasn't subtle. Victoria smiles, the expression reaching her eyes in a way it rarely did when they first met. Smart kid. Like his mother, Connor says, then adds, she would have liked you, you know. Sarah appreciated authentic people who said what they meant. And the statement, acknowledging his past while embracing the present, brings unexpected tears to Victoria's eyes. Thank you for that. It means more than you know. Their goodbye kiss is gentle, promising rather than demanding, both recognizing that whatever grows between them deserves the patient cultivation they have given their friendship over these months. See you tomorrow, Community Outreach Director, Victoria says as she steps into the hallway. Until tomorrow, CEO. After she leaves, Connor returns to the living room, picking up his guitar almost unconsciously. The melody that emerges combines elements of the song he wrote for Sarah with fragments of Victoria's composition and echoes of Leo's performance, past, present, and future woven together in harmonies that acknowledge loss while celebrating renewal. 4 months later, a crowd gathers in the newly renovated Sterling Community Music Center, the Foundation's latest initiative providing performance space and instruction for children throughout Manhattan. The converted warehouse in Washington Heights represents Victoria's vision of bringing arts education directly into communities rather than requiring students to travel to elite institutions. Behind the stage curtain, Victoria paces nervously, stopping occasionally to peer through the gap at the assembled audience. Foundation donors, board members, students and families from the music programs, local community leaders. Connor approaches with 2 cups of tea, handing one to Victoria. Nervous? Terrified, she admits, accepting the tea gratefully. I've given speeches to thousands of people without blinking. But performing music is completely different, Connor finishes. It's showing your authentic self instead of your professional persona. Exactly. Victoria sips the tea, drawing comfort from its warmth. What if I mess up? The board members are all out there. Then you'll recover and continue, like you've done with everything else this year. Connor squeezes her shoulder reassuringly. Besides, the CEO playing music with the community outreach director perfectly demonstrates the center's mission of breaking down barriers through arts. Victoria laughs softly. When did you get so good at corporate messaging? I've learned from the best. He checks his watch. 5 minutes. Is Leo ready? Warming up in the side room. He's not nervous at all, of course. 9-year-olds have no concept of reputation risk. The stage manager signals their places. Connor takes Victoria's hand briefly. Remember, it's not about perfection. It's about feeling, Victoria nods. I know. The curtain rises to reveal a simple stage setting. 3 chairs, microphones, and subtle lighting. Connor leads the way, followed by Victoria and Leo, all carrying their instruments to appreciative applause. Connor steps to the microphone. Welcome to the opening celebration of the Sterling Community Music Center. I'm Connor Mitchell, Community Outreach Director for the Sterling Foundation, and these are my favorite musicians, my son Leo and Victoria Sterling. More applause follows as they take their seats. Victoria's eyes scan the audience. Board members in the front row, Thomas Reynolds watching with bemused curiosity, community families filling most seats, and in the back, a surprise. Victoria's parents recently returned from Europe and attending their daughter's performance against all family tradition. Tonight, we'd like to share something special, Connor continues. A collaborative piece that represents the center's mission of bringing people together through music. We call it The Space Between Us. The music begins with Connor's skilled guitar introduction, Leo joining with perfectly timed accompaniment. When Victoria begins to play, her technique isn't flawless, but her emotional commitment to the piece shines through every note. The song tells their story, lyrics about barriers between worlds, about finding authentic connection in unexpected places, about building bridges strong enough to carry the weight of different lives meeting in the middle. Victoria's voice gains confidence as the piece progresses, her earlier nervousness transformed into expressive performance. In the audience, board members exchange surprised glances at this unfamiliar version of their CEO. Thomas Reynolds leans toward another director, whispering something that makes them both nod thoughtfully. Victoria's parents watch with uncharacteristic emotion, perhaps seeing their daughter clearly for the first time in decades. As the final notes fade, silence holds for a breath before the audience erupts in enthusiastic applause. Leo beams with unrestrained joy, Connor nods with quiet pride, and Victoria, accustomed to polished corporate presentations, experiences the unique satisfaction of being appreciated for something purely personal rather than professional. They take their bows together, a tableau that would have seemed impossible a year ago. The CEO, the former janitor, and the boy whose music brought them together across every barrier of class and circumstance. After the performance, the reception buzzes with conversation and congratulations. Victoria moves between groups with practiced social skill, but Connor notices the difference. She's present in these interactions, genuinely engaged rather than performing expected duties. Thomas Reynolds approaches, champagne flute in hand. Quite a performance, Victoria. I had no idea you were musical. A recent development, she acknowledges, like many things this year. The board has noticed those developments, Thomas says carefully. Your leadership has evolved. Is that approval I hear, Thomas? Let's call it reassessment. The foundation metrics are impressive. Community engagement up 40%, corporate image significantly improved, employee retention strengthened. He sips his champagne. And you seem actually happy. It's disconcerting, but not unpleasant. Victoria laughs genuinely. I'll take that as a compliment. As intended. Thomas glances toward Connor, who stands across the room talking with Leo and several music students. Your personal relationship with Mitchell is personal, Victoria interrupts firmly. I was going to say your relationship demonstrates the foundation's core values of connecting across traditional boundaries. Thomas raises an eyebrow. The board may be traditional, Victoria, but we're not blind to effective leadership, whatever form it takes. As Thomas moves away, Victoria's parents approach cautiously. Her father, Edward Sterling, retains the commanding presence that dominated Victoria's childhood, though age has softened some of his sharpness. Her mother, Elizabeth, displays the perfect poise that Victoria inherited but has gradually been unlearning. Victoria, her father begins formally, your performance was unexpected. Victoria braces herself for criticism. I'm aware it wasn't technically perfect. It wasn't about technical perfection, her mother interjects with surprising gentleness. It was authentic, something I don't believe we ever encouraged in you. Victoria stares at her mother, uncharacteristically speechless. The foundation transformation that her father continues, the community focus, even your, he glances toward Connor, personal associations. They represent significant departures from Sterling traditions. Yes, Victoria acknowledges, straightening her posture instinctively. They do. One Edward Sterling studies his daughter with new consideration. Perhaps some traditions deserve reconsideration. The Sterling legacy should evolve, not merely perpetuate. The statement, as close to approval as her father has ever offered for choices that deviated from his expectations, catches Victoria completely off guard. We're returning to Europe tomorrow, her mother adds. But perhaps when we're next in New York, you might introduce us properly to your friend and his son. I'd like that, Victoria manages, emotions threatening her careful composure. As her parents move away, Connor approaches, having observed the interaction from a distance. Everything okay? Victoria takes a moment to collect herself. My father just tacitly approved of my life choices. I'm not entirely sure how to process that. Connor smiles. Family evolution, like everything else this year. They're interrupted by Leo, rushing over with excitement. Dad, Victoria, Miss Phillips says I can perform a solo at the spring concert. Can we tell Mom? The question, so naturally including all three significant figures in his life, reinforces how organically their unusual family has developed. Of course, Connor says, we'll visit her grave this weekend. Victoria adds, and we can write her a letter about everything you've accomplished. I think she'd like that. Leo nods seriously. She'd be happy about the music center too. Dad says she always wanted more kids to have music opportunities. She was very wise, Victoria says softly. As Leo runs off to rejoin his friends, Connor and Victoria find a quiet moment amid the celebration, observing the diverse gathering that represents their collaborative vision. Wealthy donors conversing with community families, board members engaged with students, barriers dissolving through shared purpose. We actually did it, Victoria marvels. Changed the system, at least a little bit. Together, Connor reminds her, the word carrying all the meaning of their journey from that first encounter in the empty ballroom to this moment of shared accomplishment. Victoria's hand finds his, corporate propriety forgotten as she allows herself this public acknowledgement of their personal connection. I own a building and 60 floors of power, she says, echoing words from their earliest conversations, but I never had someone to call when darkness fell. Until you. And I had lost my music until you helped me find it again, Connor responds. Some bridges, once built, are strong enough to transform both sides. Around them, the Sterling Community Music Center pulses with energy and possibility, a physical manifestation of the bridge they've constructed between worlds that once seemed impossibly distant. Outside, through the tall windows, the Manhattan skyline glitters against the night sky. The Sterling Corporation building stands illuminated among the towers, no longer representing a prison of expectations, but a platform for meaningful change. And in this converted warehouse in Washington Heights, far from corporate boardrooms and executive suites, Victoria Sterling and Connor Mitchell stand at the center of a new kind of power, one built on authentic connection, shared purpose, and the music that ultimately brought them together across every barrier.